I get your attention? We're going to go ahead and get started because we have a packed agenda today. I'm Susan Levinsky. I'm the CEO at Charles Ryan Associates, and I'm also the chair of this year's West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. It's great to be back together here as we kick off the 87th annual meeting of the Business Summit of the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. I'm a Greenbrier County girl, so I'm glad to be back home and spend the next 3 days creating connections and building futures for West Virginia. So with that, let's now kick off our long-awaited Chamber of Commerce Business Summit program. If everyone will please rise, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. For those of you in line, if you'll just take just a second, if everybody will stop and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If everybody could remain standing just a second, you caught me on the next page. Our invocation will be offered by our friend, the Reverend Greg Scott.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we come this afternoon. We come to bow in your presence and say thank you. We thank you, Lord, for another expression of your goodness, and we thank you, Lord, for bringing this conference to reality once again. We thank you, Lord, that you brought them from far and near, Lord. Some have gone away, but, Lord, we thank you for what you're going to do in this great state. We ask, Lord, to bless this meeting, oh God, bless the food that's been prepared for the anointing of their bodies. Forgive us of our sins and accept our gratitude. And this we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Let us all say amen.
Amen. Thank you, and thank you for always taking such good care of us as we're here at the Greenbrier. So welcome to the 2023 Business Summit. If you will look around this room, you will see that we have once again attracted a record number of exhibitors, sponsors, and most importantly, attendees who are gathered here to celebrate West Virginia and build the future of our great state. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and get started with our program today just because we do have such a packed agenda, so please feel free to continue to go through the buffet line. For those of you who are returning, it is great to see you again. And to those of you who this is your first Business Summit, welcome and thank you for joining us. After these 3 days, I have no doubt that you will be putting next year's meeting on your calendar before you leave here. This meeting would not be possible without the tremendous support of our Business Summit sponsors. Many of those sponsors are exhibiting, and I would encourage you to stop by their booths. Remember that if you fill out your exhibitor card, you can return it for a chance to win some great prizes. I would also encourage you to thank all the sponsors in person if you see them. So first of all, let's go through a few of these. I would like to very much thank our host sponsor, Marshall University. Our diamond sponsors, Vandalia Health and COVA and WVU Medicine. Our platinum special events sponsors, Antera Resources and Chemours. Our platinum sponsors, Mountain Valley Pipeline, Peak Health, Spelman Thomas and Battle, Appalachian Power, the College Board, Mountain Health Network, the Center for Rural Health Development, and West Virginia American Water. And our gold sponsors, AT&T, CityNet, Dinsmore, Unicare, United Bank, West Virginia Yeager International Airport, Steptoe & Johnson, Jackson Kelly, Marshall Health, Huntington Bank, Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Berkshire Hathaway Renewables, the Greenbrier, the Nature Conservancy, Optimum Business, and Dominion Energy. Please also recognize our silver, bronze, and our friends sponsors. We have continued another tradition this year in showcasing photos from West Virginia Day on the screens before the meeting commenced. All of those photos were provided by you, our members, and we want to celebrate them. These photos will be shown throughout the Business Summit, and some are highlighted in the program. Thank you to all those who submitted the fantastic photos from West Virginia Day. The theme of last year's meeting was leaders taking action, because that's exactly what the leaders and the members of this organization do. This year's theme is creating connections and building the future. That theme is so fitting because the connections that are being made in West Virginia with the rest of the country and the rest of the world are bringing incredible economic opportunities to our state. Many of these new companies are meeting with us today. Please be sure to give them a warm welcome. The Chamber is also welcoming an incredible number of new members at this year's event. These businesses represent a broad and diverse cross-section of the employee communities in the state, from small businesses to major companies, those who have called West Virginia home for a long time, and those who have chosen our beautiful state for their new opportunities. On behalf of the membership and the board of directors, I want to thank those new members for joining this great organization. I also want to thank President Steve Roberts and his incredibly talented staff. We would not have had such good news to report without them. If all chamber staff members would please stand up, and let's give them a warm welcome and round of applause. Steve, Kathy, Brian, Kaylin, Lily, Elizabeth, Andrea, and Caitlin, thank you so much. Thank you for helping our members every day and for your incredible legislative successes and tremendous events, and the tremendous events that we feature, and for everything that you all do to make those possible. The West Virginia Chamber of Commerce is the voice of over 5,000 members who employ over half of West Virginia's workforce. We remain ever vigilant monitors and champions of a fair and balanced legal system. And we continue to identify and champion solutions to move our state forward. During this year's legislative session, your West Virginia Chamber team continued making great strides towards the goal of making West Virginia a better place to live, to work, and to raise a family. The Chamber was engaged on a number of critical issues, from supporting major economic development projects, streamlining the permitting process of newer power plants, tackling some of our state's most serious health care costs and issues, to saving West Virginia taxpayers significant money. The West Virginia Chamber played a key role in these achievements. So I want to go over just a few quick housekeeping items before we get started for the rest of the day. Our evening cordial reception will again be held tonight. A lot of times it's held on Thursday night. This year it is going to be held tonight rather than Thursday night. It will begin at 9 p.m. on the Colonial Terrace, and this is truly a beautiful event and one not to miss. We will also be holding both Business Summit receptions at 6 p.m. tonight and tomorrow night at Colonial Terrace, 6 p.m. both nights. And a special note for contributors to the PAC, the Chamber PAC. The Chamber PAC will be holding a reception for PAC contributors tomorrow evening at 5:30 in the Chesapeake Bay Room. Again, reception is for PAC members only, PAC contributors. If you have not contributed to the PAC but would like to attend, worry not. We will be glad to take your check and invite you into the room. We really need our Chamber members to participate in the PAC. There are contribution forms located at the door and the Chamber's exhibit space as well, or Steve, Brian, or any other Chamber team member will be more than happy to take your PAC contribution, trust me. The PAC works to elect political leaders who are willing to stand up and make difficult decisions that are needed to drive West Virginia forward. So please consider contributing to our PAC. And lastly, tomorrow morning's first speaker, Rear Admiral Paul Reed, is unfortunately unable to attend due to a medical emergency in his family. We are certainly keeping he and his family in our thoughts and prayers during this time. However, we will still start at 8 p.m. with a major economic development announcement at 8 o'clock in the morning. So please, although Admiral Paul Reed will not be here, we will start at 8 o'clock in the morning with a major announcement. So right now, if you all will just continue to have lunch, and we will be back with our speakers here very soon. Thank you so much. And I have the high honor of introducing our first speaker, the governor of the great state of West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice. Governor Justice is a graduate of Raleigh County Public Schools and graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School and attended Greenbrier Military Academy as a postgraduate. The governor attended Marshall University in Huntington and earned his undergraduate degree and master's degree in business administration. In 2016, Justice was elected as the 36th governor of the state of West Virginia, taking office in January of 2017. He was reelected in 2020, winning all 55 counties in the state. Governor Justice announced earlier this year that he will be running for the United States Senate in the next year's election. Please join me in welcoming the governor of the great state of West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice.
First of all, it's great to be with you. But I'll tell you what is wonderful to see. Every year, the room gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And to see this level of participation, to see this level of love for this great state is real heartwarming to me. You know, because I'll promise you, and I'm sure for you too, it's easy to remember a few days back when things were pretty tough. Now, we don't need to belabor that, but we have got a momentum right now that's second to none. And with all that being said, to be again as truthful as I know I can possibly be, you're the engines, really and truly. Now, maybe you needed a coach, or maybe a leader of the band, or maybe you needed all the agencies that we could bring together to help start moving the boat. But really, at the end of the day, you're oaring the boat. You're making the good stuff happen. And by doing that, more and more and more good and more opportunity come to all of us every day. I'll ask you to do just this. I'll ask you to remember the folks that are involved in this terrible flooding that's going on right now. And it could be, with maybe even additional rain on the way, that could get even tougher. Now just think about this, because many of you that are from this area and other areas of our state remember 2016 and remember a flood beyond belief. I can remember like it was yesterday hunting for 6 weeks for a little 14-year-old girl that we couldn't find, that we finally found miles downstream. It's tough. I can remember just like it was yesterday seeing the National Guard pull up to house after house after house, and all their memories, the photo albums, the gifts that had been given to them for years and years and years were piled out in the street in a pile full of mud, and the inloader came by and loaded it up and threw it in a dump truck, and off it went to the landfill. I'm telling you, really tough stuff. We did open the Greenbrier up, and people came walking in this front door, front gate, or with no shoes. And a lot of people said, boy, that was really nice to do. Bull snot. It was the right thing to do. And you do the right thing for all of us all the time. It's the right thing for me to thank you, because I mean it from the very bottom of my heart when I tell you that. You see, yesterday I had the opportunity to speak to all the kids at Greenbrier East High School. And my wife is doing all kinds of things with communities and schools, and honest to God, it is phenomenal, the success level. If you haven't seen that, you need to go. And right now they're doing therapy dogs, and the school was getting a therapy dog, and in the school here was every bleacher all the way around the gymnasium packed with kids. And they were so attentive and so mannerly to what I was saying, it was off the chart. And here's what I said. I said, years ago, you may have, upon graduation, had to leave our state and go to Denver or Charlotte or Atlanta to get a job. As you would have had young families, you may have had to go for sure. But now things are changing. And opportunity now is coming right upon you here in this great state. It's you. It's you. You see, I don't have a bunch of notes. I didn't plan to say that. But really and truly, at the end of the day, I mean it. It's truly you. I also said to those kids, you know, your grandma may want to have a picnic this coming Sunday, and in years past she couldn't do it because her kids were in Atlanta and Denver and Charlotte and all over the place, and they couldn't come. And do you not think your grandma wants you to be able to come? And she does. You see, when we fragmented our families, we're ripping our total soul all apart. I mean it when I tell you I love you. Now, I've got something that is unflat believable on top of what I just said. And I don't want to screw this up. But I want to tell you that for the first time maybe in history, a coal-fired power plant. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to all stand up just a second. And if at the end of the day you don't like what I'm saying, then you go on and sit down. But I want you all to stand up because I want to show you something that is really, really great. And I want them to hear you on the other end. But for the first time, maybe the first time in this country, the Pleasance power plant, a coal-fired power plant, is taking new life. And it's taking new life right in front of our eyes. And whether it be Simon Hudson or it be, you know, the great workers Bill Cole or Jay Powell or whomever, and I'll forget a whole bunch. But with all that being said, you know, today, and again, I don't want to mess this up, for the first time ever, I am here to share with you that the Omnis Fuel Technologies has restarted the Pleasant Power Plant, and I want you to look right here. Can you see the steam coming out of the smokestacks? Now's when you really cheer.
Governor, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Jay.
Hey, Governor Justice, state of West Virginia, we're so thankful for today. Drove south on Route 2 just a little bit ago with tears in our eyes, literally, as we see the cooling tower producing. The good Lord above provide us the blue sky to see that steam coming out of there. And you look over here, we have the main stack producing. You're right, Governor. Thanks to you. Thanks to many in West Virginia. Ultimate thanks to the good Lord above that we're doing something that no one can say they've ever done before. The plant was mothballed. It was scheduled to be taken out of here, as Bill Cole said before, taken out of here on barges. And rather today, I'm sitting here with the president of Omnis, Rich Hume, and we're celebrating at 5:39 a.m. We went on the grid today. And God bless you. God bless this plant. And we can't be so any more thankful than we are today.
Jay, thank you so much. Jay, you've got 18,000 people here cheering for you. We couldn't fit any more in here. The place will hold 18,010, but really and truly, when I came in, it filled up the whole room.
Wow. That wow goes for Greenbrier, what's going on there. That wow goes for Pleasant County. That wow goes for the state of West Virginia. And ultimately, Governor, because of your leadership and the good Lord's provision, that wow goes for a revolutionary idea that's coming our way with hydrogen one of these days. Today, we're running traditional coal-fired power plant. Tomorrow or the days to come, God willing, sooner than later, we'll be running this plant on hydrogen. And we can't be more gracious and more thankful than we are today.
Jay, thanks again. Listen, all y'all can sit
Thank
down.
you.
And Rich is Rich going to say anything, Jay?
Rich is just saying thank you as well. He's choosing not to. But Governor, on behalf of Rich and myself, and I'm sure Simon will say that and Bill as well, bless you. May God continue to bless you as he's done in the great state of West Virginia. But thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It couldn't happen without you today, that's for sure. Really, really appreciate all you've done.
Well, thanks, Jay. And really and truly, all the people all across the board that have really worked really hard to make this become a reality and everything. That's 150 jobs, and that's an $800 million potential investment as we move to show the world all the goodness that we can maybe do with hydrogen, coal, and whatever it may be, rare earths, all the different stuff that's available to us. But Simon and Jay and Rich and Bill Cole, all of you that really worked really hard, and all of our folks in economic development and everything, everybody that's really put in a whole lot of licks in commerce and everything, thanks so much. That's all I have to tell you, except having an incredible time at the Greenbrier. Have an incredible time in West Virginia. We're on the move. God bless us. Let's keep going. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Governor Justice. I hope you're able to stay with us for the remainder of the Business Summit. Next, I'm going to ask Danny Twilley to please come to the stage. And Danny is going to be joined by two of my good friends, the president of Marshall University, Brad Smith, and the president of WVU, Gordon Gee. And we are going to locate the clicker. Maybe. We'll get it for you.
It's okay. I can just point over. Well, first and foremost, welcome once again to the 2023 West Virginia Chamber of Commerce Business Summit. My name is Danny Twilley, and it's a true honor and privilege here to be able to represent such a diverse and talented group of individuals from both Marshall University and West Virginia University to officially announce and launch a program that is designed to help address the state's brain drain by retaining and attracting 1,000 graduating students from both WVU and Marshall to stay in West Virginia. The program is called First Ascent. The program was built on the foundation and the framework of Ascend West Virginia. That program was designed to bring remote workers here and was founded by both Brad and Elise Smith through their Wing to Wing Foundation, through a tremendous gift to WVU, and in partnership with the Governor and Secretary of Tourism, Chelsea Ruby. It is through that program that we have been able to invite 159 ascenders. We will be over 200 by the end of this year. When you account for their families, we already have 300 new residents who bring a diverse set of skills and talents from the companies they work for and the industries they work in. 46% of those individuals have bought homes in the Mountain State, planting roots here. They come with robust salaries that allow them to support and spend in our local communities. We have received over 33,000 applications from all 50 states and 80 countries. We have 1.3 billion media impressions, and we have a 47% open rate through our email campaign. It was through this that we knew we had something special, but we knew we could do more. And it's really unique to be back here because 2 years ago at this very gathering, Someone walked up to us and said, I love what you're doing with Ascent, but what about West Virginians like me who graduated from WVU? It was that seed coupled with the data that over the last 72 years, we've lost 12% of our population. We lead the country in brain drain, and 61% of WVU students and Marshall graduates leave the state upon graduation. And we know that if the talent is here, the businesses will be here because it's the most important factor in economic development decisions. When you put all that together, we decided to create a program and create multiple pathways for 1,000 students to stay. It's through remote work, remote first, hybrid, or students who want to be entrepreneurs, start a small business or scale up a small business. But they can also work for West Virginia companies. For those out there looking for talent, we're building them here. Let's work to keep them here together. They can choose to live in one of 5 locations. It's our 6 locations. One of our 5 Ascend communities, the greater Morgantown area, the Greenbrier Valley, Eastern Panhandle, the greater Elkins area, or the New River Gorge. And with our tremendous partnership with Marshall University, these individuals will also have the choice to live in Huntington, West Virginia. And we couldn't be more proud. When you couple that, we knew that we had to create a program that aligns with the values of this up-and-coming generation and our leaders, of the future leaders of our state. We built it around the idea of community. We built it the idea of purpose and serving others. And we built it around one of our greatest assets, our natural resources and our outdoors. Through this program, they'll have access to success coaching in partnership with our career advisors and our academic advisors. They'll have mentorship network through our Ascend program. They'll have access to a tremendous and robust outdoor recreation package so they can go out and explore the state. They'll have access to our free co-working space and a organized social activities. And then we'll also support those who want to start their businesses or scale those businesses. When we look at measuring success, if we can just keep 1,000 students here, we will have a $317 million economic impact. We'll also create 941 additional jobs. But we also know that we're measuring additional metrics, such as community engagement. Building off what the governor was talking about, advancing the changing narrative as West Virginia as a great place to work, live, and play. And we're also going to strengthen our communities by building on the social fabric of our state. So I could not be more proud to officially today launch the First Ascent program. If you can work anywhere, choose home. And with that in mind, I want to turn it over to 2 leaders who have paved the way for so many in this state. And they offer a beacon of hope for what's possible for West Virginia. My dear friends, President Gee and President Smith, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liz Vitullo. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Economic Innovation at WVU and an Assistant Dean for Strategic Initiatives at the WVU College of Business and Economics. I have the honor of moderating a quick fireside chat with 2 of my favorite university presidents. We're going to dive into a quick conversation with some additional details about First Ascent. We're going to talk about Universities United, and then we're going to put a call to action out to this crowd. So President Gee, let's start with you. Tell us how you see the First Ascent program, helping fulfill WVU's land grant mission in terms of our role in co-leading this initiative.
Well, first of all, everyone, I'm glad to be here. It's the first time I've seen a friendly crowd in a while. I was telling Brad that I'm trying to keep the people who dislike me away from the people who hate me, so it's kind of a fun to be here. So anyway, I think that the issues that we face in this state have been profound for a long time, but we're now grappling with them in real time, and that is what I like. What we have done in West Virginia is we've exported coal, oil, gas, but the most telling export has been our talent, and we simply have to make certain that now what we do is we keep our talent here. The land grant mission of West Virginia University is to make certain that we build communities, that we keep people employed, that we have a prosperity agenda. And clearly, this program that we are developing right now is an enormously important one. In many ways, it meets. I used to joke about the fact that we're going to build a wall around West Virginia and have Ohio pay for it. Well, this is instead it's Brad Smith who's paying for it, and I always love asking Brad for money. He's a lovely man, but I could use about $45 million right now. So anyway. Saying all of that, what we're going to do is we're going to keep our talent here by providing the opportunities for them to stay here, and that's what this is about.
Thank you. President Smith, through the Wing to Wing Foundation resources and the mentorship that you and Elise have provided the Ascend team, I really believe Ascend has been a big success. You often talk about the flywheel effect. Can you share your vision for Ascend in terms of the flywheel effect and how First Ascend fits in?
I can. Well, first of all, it's awesome to be up here on the stage with you, Liz. Danny, thank you for that amazing overview. And President Gee, you're a dear friend. I love the Thundering Mountaineers. And as you say, WVU is a land grant by charter. Marshall University is a land grant by choice. So we'll do it together.
There we go, right?
So we are Universities United. And we talk about this flywheel effect because it's a term that says the more people who participate in a program or join a network or join a platform, they create more value for every individual who in turn tells more people, and it brings more people in, and it creates this virtuous cycle. And I'll take it through the example of Ascend. So Ascend set out to solve a strategic problem, which was 70 years of population decline and brain drain, and capitalize on a secular trend, which was the move towards remote work and a shift in destination. People wanted to move to more rural areas where they could live, work, and play. So the design was come up with the most amazing program that gives you not one choice like remote, Tulsa remote, or Shoals, Alabama, but 5 choices in Hallmark communities. Give you a program that includes $20,000 of value, so relocation and retention incentives, co-working facility, the ability to get 1 year's worth of free outdoor amenities, the ability to work with other ascenders who have the same sorts of aspirations you do, and basically bring your talent, bring your family and friends, bring your income and your job into our communities, where they then buy homes, they rent homes, they spend with our businesses, they actually have their income tax, which pays for our K-12 school system and our broadband, and then ultimately they tell their friends, you cannot believe where I've moved, what I'm getting a chance to do every weekend. And that invites more people to enroll, 30,000 plus people wanting to get into the state of West Virginia. But through the process, as Danny said, we realized this was a platform that could be used for multiple opportunities. Imagine military Ascend for the veterans who served our nation, choosing West Virginia as their forever home. Imagine nurses or teachers and inviting them in. Or imagine the ability to convince our own native sons and daughters, if you seek adventure, if you seek a career, look no further than your backyard. West Virginia has that opportunity. And I think this is going to create an amazing flywheel for the state, just as Ascend has already.
Yeah, it's so exciting and it's amazing. Yeah, let's do. It's amazing what a foundation Ascend has created for these other verticals. President Gee, I'm going to turn back to you. Can you share some of the details about Universities United and how First Ascent fits into this and why this partnership with Marshall is so important?
Well, Brad and I first met in John Chambers' home, and we started talking about his commitment to West Virginia and the fact that I just returned. This was just about 2014, 2015, and we started talking about how we could start working together just as individuals. And then when Brad returned and was appointed, he called me up and said, I might become a university president. I told him that was too low of an aspiration, but he did it anyway. I don't know why he came up with that notion, but nonetheless, we made a determination at that time, and we made it directly and personally the fact that we would no longer have competition between our two institutions. And what we would do is have only collaboration. And I can tell you that in a small state with 2 major universities and an opportunity for us to drive the agenda, between the 2 of us, we're the largest employers in the state. We have the most economic value in the state. We drive almost everything that happens here with our colleagues in the legislature, the governor, and others. And so we came up with this notion of Universities United, and we fly under that flag. And in so doing, we make certain that we have a common agenda, a common bond, and a common purpose. And I think it is working very well, and I can tell you that will make a real difference for West Virginia.
Well, last question here, and President Smith, I'm going to turn to you. So in this room, we have leaders from across the state, incredible leaders. How can they help with First Ascent?
Well, we recognize in this state that we raise each other up. I've often said the most important letters in our state's name are the first two, W-E. And our rally cry, "We are Marshall," is the first word, we. And so ultimately, I would say attitude determines altitude. This next generation is looking to us, and we have the opportunity to both help them see that their future is right here, that they can connect to meaningful job opportunities right here, and then let's offer them those job opportunities. In some cases, it may need to be remote or hybrid work, as you saw, because they'll be in 5 different locations, plus Huntington, so the 6th location. But let's get creative and innovative and remove the barriers so that our sons and daughters can stay here in this state, stand on the shoulders of the giants who sit in this room, and continue to build the great state of West Virginia. That would be my ask.
And we will call people upon that and make sure that we follow up on that ask. And the teams from WU and Marshall are here throughout the summit. If you'd like to learn more about First Ascent or have questions, please seek us out. Thank you for the opportunity to share this exciting announcement, and thank you to our university presidents here.
First of all, the clicker was up here all along. When you get that look from Brian Dayton, like, Susan, do you not know what a clicker looks like? So for anybody who's coming up, it is up here. I got it, Brian. Sorry about that. First of all, I do want to say thank you. And, it warms my heart as a West Virginian to see Brad, Gordon, WVU, Marshall University working so closely together. It kind of is the joke. We all know this. I'm on the board of governors at WVU, but I'm also a proud Marshall University graduate. So, to have our two universities working together can only benefit our state. So thank you, Brad, Gordon, and Danny, for that exciting news. Brad, I'll ask you if you'll just sit for our next presentation, and also thank you for your sponsorship of this year's summit. Higher education is one of the main economic drivers in any state, and we are so lucky to have major university systems in West Virginia fulfilling that role. Last year, one of West Virginia's native sons returned home to take the helm of our host sponsor, Marshall University, and the work he is doing is truly incredible. Thank you, Brad. Brad is the president of Marshall University and native of Canova, West Virginia. For 11 years, Brad served as the CEO of Intuit and most recently served as the executive chair of the board. In addition to his role as the president of Marshall, Brad is also the chairman of the Nordstrom board and active on the boards of Momentive and Yahoo. Brad has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Marshall University and a master's degree in management from Aquinas College. Aquinas College. Yep. My southern West Virginia accent's coming out worse than yours, Brad.
I love it.
Brad has 2 daughters and is married to Elise, who is here with us today as well and sitting at our table. Next, I would like to introduce Tony Stroud. And Tony and I promised Tony I wouldn't tell stories about him, so I guess I'll keep with that tradition. Tony and I have worked together for many years. Tony serves as the General Counsel and Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Corporate Relations at Marshall University. An accomplished attorney with more than 24 years of experience, Tony previously served as an Assistant Vice President at Encova Insurance and was a member with Steptoe & Johnson. Tony is an avid runner who has completed more than 30 marathons. He and his wife, Cassie, are active in their church and live in Ona with their 2 daughters. So, Brad and Tony, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for being nice.
You
didn't.
Hey, brother.
Thank you, my friend. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat here. And, this is a topic of profound significance, one that deeply resonates with all of us, and that is higher education and how does it fuel the economy. Education has always been recognized as the cornerstone of progress, and in today's landscape, its impact extends well beyond the classroom walls. The reason I say this is twofold. First, we have to recognize the transformative power of education. Through investment in the intellectual development of our students, we also invest in the growth of our economy. Through education, we equip our young people with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to become the problem solvers of tomorrow. And it's more than just presenting a degree or graduating someone. It's nurturing leaders, entrepreneurs, problem solvers who can help grow the economy. And the synergy I see going on right now between higher education and the state of West Virginia is none like anything I've seen before. And I think that is significant to what we are trying to do here in West Virginia as we grow our economy. Now, universities are more than just learning institutions. We are also institutions that are catalysts for positive change in our state. Through their commitment to academic excellence, research, and community engagement, we help drive and are vital to the region of economy. And as we look at West Virginia on a broader canvas, we see opportunities and prosperity that have not existed in this state for a significant amount of time. And today it's my pleasure to be here on stage with my good friend, Brad Smith. Brad is someone who is a true visionary, a true leader, someone that embodies the spirit of growth, collaboration, progress, and innovation. We're so excited to have Brad here, not only at Marshall University serving as our president, but also what he brings to the entire state of West Virginia. He has long been dedicated to increasing educational opportunities and the economy here in Appalachia. And Brad, I've heard you say many times recently how exciting things are in the state of West Virginia and Marshall University. Would you care to share with us why you feel strongly about that now?
Well, first of all, Tony, you humble me with your words, as does Susan. It is the power of we, and it's sometimes better to be lucky than good, and I'm lucky that you let me come back home. So I'm delighted to be here again in the mountains with amazing people like you doing incredible things. And I really think that our time has come. We have played many chapters in this nation's history, but right now, if you look at what we bring, we are bringing solutions to the problems that society's trying to figure out how to solve in a post-pandemic society. We have amazing talent. We have innovative universities. We have business-friendly policies. We have amazing, vast resources, and they are providing the answers to the questions that companies and other geographies are wrestling with. But instead of walking you through all the reasons why I believe it in the bottom of my heart, we've been talking about at Marshall, we have to accelerate the velocity of ideas to impact. We have to increase our say-do ratio. Less talk, more do. Let's get the cranes moving. So instead of me talking about it, why don't we roll a video and show this audience what is happening in the great state of West Virginia.
People and businesses alike are experiencing the opportunities that come when you choose West Virginia. They're seeing what we see every day, the perfect partner and a community to live, work, and play. Whether you're looking for a cost-effective way to expand your operations or to enjoy some breathtaking scenery with a little room to breathe, take a serious look at the Mountain State and choose West Virginia. Did you know that West Virginia is experiencing its most expansive growth ever? This is driven by an unparalleled collaboration that connects state government and the business sector, along with higher education. And it's led us to a growing reputation as a state that is talent-rich, capital-efficient, and policy-friendly.
And this is the way things are working in West Virginia now. Speed of business instead of speed of government.
West Virginia offers high schoolers the opportunity to earn college credits while finishing their diplomas, a free college tuition, and customized training programs.
We are one of the top research institutions in the nation.
We are constantly upskilling here to deliver a top-notch workforce, guided by a state government that slashes red tape.
We are really starting to shine. You just wait.
We can fast-track new industries with lower production costs, and companies are taking notice.
Nucor Corporation will build a $2.7 billion steel sheet mill just down the road in Apple Grove. This new mill will bring 800 full-time jobs to the area.
We've seen over $7 billion of investment in West Virginia in the course of the past 3 years. I'm proud of that.
State investments and flexible incentives are helping the next generation of companies plant their seeds and grow roots in the Mountain State, where we have the ability to develop meaningful partnerships that can get you up and running fast. West Virginia is embracing AI, green technologies, advanced manufacturing, and digital health solutions that all help companies stay ahead of the ever-changing business landscape.
It's a privilege for us to be able to create an atmosphere here and an environment that allows us to create a 21st century economy.
And we have always been an energy state.
The state, known for its coal mining industry, now in a partnership with a Canadian EV maker called Greenbrier Motor Company to manufacture zero-emission school buses.
$500 million investment in renewable energy is coming to Jackson County, West Virginia.
Our proud heritage and strong work ethic will guide us as we continue to power the nation with innovative partnerships to blaze new trails in power solutions. We're building on our proud legacy of aviation giants like the Tuskegee Airmen, Chuck Yeager, the Rocket Boys, and Katherine Johnson to put an East Coast hub for piloting, aviation maintenance, and aerospace right here within our borders. Whether you want to dip your toes into city life or take a quiet drive down winding country roads, the Mountain State has it all with a neighborhood charm that sets it apart.
Would you move to another state for a chunk of change? Brad Smith, a proud mountaineer, teamed up with the state of West Virginia to develop an initiative to grow the community in his home state.
My husband and I have dreams of starting businesses that we couldn't have started in D.C. Here it's possible.
There's going to be a large number of people who can live anywhere they want and do their job, and we think West Virginia is the perfect place for them to choose.
In West Virginia, we know our neighbors. We go to PTA meetings. We cheer at weekend soccer, and we perform at outdoor theaters. We are bonded by the mountaineer spirit, which means we help when we can, and we pay it forward. Service is in our DNA. Our safe communities and low cost of living are set off by a historic tax break. It is no surprise why families are choosing West Virginia. And we don't forget to make time to play. From our emerald green mountains to picturesque lakes and awe-inspiring trails to winter thrills, West Virginia has the best of all four seasons with activities for all ages to enjoy. We even claim a James Beard-nominated chef. And it's no longer our little secret. West Virginia was the only state to be recognized by every major travel publication in 2021. With our creative and friendly people, beautiful landscapes, and recent business announcements, it should be clear by now, there are many reasons to take another look at West Virginia.
I, for one, am ready to commit this legislature to helping us put West Virginia on a path to make it easier to simply choose West Virginia.
We want to welcome you in. Get to work with you right away with our strong universities and a business-friendly state government ready to be your partner. Opportunity is everywhere if you know where to look. Choose West Virginia.
This video gives me chills. This is the second time I've seen it, to see some of the activity and what are the great things we have going on here in West Virginia. And I think I speak for everyone in this room when I make this statement. But Brad and Elise, when you were trying to decide what to do with your talents and energy, we are all glad you chose West Virginia.
That was easy.
Let's talk a little bit about this Choose West Virginia initiative. And, it's a partnership between Marshall University, West Virginia University. Dr. Cage at West Virginia State joined us on our last trip, along with our legislative leadership. President Blair, Speaker Henshaw, many of our legislative leaders have joined us. And we've gone across the country. We started in Silicon Valley, New York City, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, most recently in Seattle, where we had the opportunity to meet with Amazon, Microsoft, and Boeing. What responses have you received across the state from this initiative, Brad, and what do you hope comes from the Choose West Virginia initiative?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, the credit goes to Speaker Henshaw and to President Blair. They had the foresight to see that we were in the midst of a major reinvention in the state, but the narrative outside the state was still playing old tapes. For far too long, we've allowed people to tell our story for us. And sometimes it doesn't reflect the current reality. Sometimes it doesn't paint us in the best light. And so we decided to get our narrative, pull it together, and get out on the road and tell people about the real West Virginia. And so they got Gordon, myself, you heard other names that were mentioned, President Cage and others, and we went out and we visited those sites. And what we have seen is two reactions. The first is amazement, and the second is appreciation. The first is amazement. The amazement in the room, and when we actually show other people in West Virginia, they go, wow, that's happening here. So we realized we should have started here first. We should have started showing everybody everything that's going on so we can all get excited and feel that pride of who we are and what we're doing and how the rest of the world is seeing us. And then they're amazed that we're getting 39 CEOs of tech companies and energy companies in Silicon Valley. We're going into New York, and the largest investment bankers and energy companies are meeting with us. Trade ambassadors from 12 countries meet us in D.C. We go to Charlotte. The major manufacturers are there. And then Amazon and Microsoft and Boeing's top leaders host us and woo us, literally a day each, to try to convince us to have them come and work with us. And so it is an exciting thing that has people amazed. And then the second is appreciation, the appreciation that we're collaborating in ways that was not historically the way we thought about it. Universities working together, both sides of the aisle, federal, state, local officials, all going out together as West Virginians. That's been the reaction, and the results are starting to show up in that video.
Yeah, I recall when we were in Seattle when meeting with the Amazon folks that they said they've never seen a collaboration among higher education and state government and other partners like they have here in West Virginia, and they're very excited about what we have going on here. And, you know, as the video showed, we have seen unprecedented growth in the recent number of years with the likes of Nucor, Berkshire Hathaway, Form Energy, Green Power, Omnis, we just saw. The list goes on and on. Brett, how does higher education play a role in this success that West Virginia is seeing?
Well, we prepare the next generation of talent for the things that are going to be important in society. It starts with a foundational education, liberal arts, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, teamwork, all the things that require us to be able to interact in a team environment. But then there, we have to look at what are the things most in demand in today's environment. And in West Virginia, we're dreamers and doers. We celebrate inspiration and perspiration. We invest in the trades. We also invest in the next generation of technologies, and we don't overlook one for the other. And so it's important for us to ensure that what we're doing in the education environment is teaching things that are in demand, providing them to students that are on demand, because many of our students have a full-time job. So they have to be able to get classes to work around their life. They may have children. They may be military veterans returning home. We have to be flexible for their lifestyle. And then we have to choose where we're going to be distinctive. And that work was done in this state in 2016. This state worked together, the state government, both universities, outside parties, to say what are the big unsolved problems the world is wrestling with that West Virginia has already demonstrated it can be distinctive and excellent, and it gives us some durable advantage. And it pointed us to 6 areas: cybersecurity, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and all of the above, energy approach, aviation, and entrepreneurship. And we have leaned in complementary ways across the entire education ecosystem. Our community and technical colleges doing amazing work. Our private colleges, University of Charleston, our state schools, all of us are leaning in a way where we're all playing a different instrument, but it all shows up as an orchestra playing one piece of music. And I think that's what's really moving us forward.
When you became president of Marshall in January 22, the 38th president, during your first 100 days, you intentionally listened more than you spoke, and it's highlighted by your 38 listening tours across the community, 18 discussions with other university and college presidents, 6 campus visits. And the result of this was 1,000-plus participants and 1,200-plus captured responses you received. How did you use this information when you were developing your strategic priorities at Marshall University?
Well, that approach was the best piece of advice I got, and it came from my mom. Honey, when I gave birth to you, I gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that ratio. So being gone for 36 years, I needed to really immerse myself and hear from all the major stakeholders. What's going on? How can we be a solution to the problems that our community's wrestling with, our faculty, our staff, our students are looking for? How can we complement others? And the end result is a plan called Marshall for All, Marshall Forever. It is focused on delivering a 21st century education that is affordable, it's flexible, and it's focused on life and career achievement. To do that, we have been looking at our programs to make sure we're teaching things that are in demand, that are on demand, and distinctive, and we've leaned into those 6 areas. And I'll give you a couple things that make me super proud. West Virginia is a beacon for the nation in cybersecurity. We are outside the D.C. blast radius, so we are a place where the D.C. and the rest of the nation can rely on us to help them. We produce amazing talent through our community and technical colleges, through West Virginia University, West Virginia State, and Marshall. And I'll just talk about Marshall for a minute. 9 of the last 11 years, Marshall University students have scored number 1 in the nation in forensic science. This year, we were number 1 again. In cybersecurity, national champs in cybersecurity in 2020. This year, the national coach is a professor from Marshall. And all of that shone a light on us from the federal government, Department of Defense, Department of Education, Homeland Security, everyone leaning in and saying, we want to have a hub on the East Coast to complement what we have in San Antonio, Texas for the West Coast. And so because of the support of everyone in this room and the collaboration with the other education systems, we're going to build an East Coast cybersecurity hub that will protect our critical infrastructure and work with the other universities and technical colleges to make us strong. So I'm just super proud of how that work has informed our plan. But Marshall for All, Marshall Forever has a dream. The dream is in 10 years, 100% of our students will get placed in a career of their choice and 0 students will have student loan debt. We will increase our research grants and contracts from $65 million today to $150 million while increasing the number of startups and businesses by 3x. And for every dollar the state gives us, today we give them a $14 return. We want to have a $30 return, $2.5 billion. We have a roadmap to get there. We have progress already starting to show up. And in fact, this year is the first year in 13 years we've reversed an enrollment decline. As of yesterday, our enrollment's up 5.1%.
The impact on this program, I think, is going to be tremendous. You know, you and I are both first in our families to have the opportunity to attend college. And with the pilot program we have going on at Marshall now, we have 100 students who are in this pilot program to graduate debt-free, and to see some of the stories and hear some of the stories of these young people and how it would not have been possible for them to further their education without the benefit of this program brings tears to your eyes. We have a video of one young lady who has passed through several different foster homes and finally found a family who she said loved her for the first time, and her chance to get to come and further her education is so powerful. And you know, we in West Virginia, we are proud people, and we have a lot of people who will benefit for this program because we have a lot of people who education is tough to afford, and I think this is going to be huge for the state of West Virginia.
I do too, Tony. And you know, when we were out, sometimes when we see ourselves through the eyes of others, we realize we do have something special here. And when we were in Boeing, we were having a conversation about aviation as one of our 6 pillars. And someone whispered and said, with all due respect, we love everything that's going on, but what does West Virginia have to do with aviation? I said, funny that you should ask. Did you realize the Wright brothers' first plane was built with West Virginia spruce? Did you realize we trained the Tuskegee Airmen? Did you realize we broke the sound barrier with our native son, Chuck Yeager? Did you realize when we needed to put a man on the moon, we produced Homer Hickam and the boys in October Sky that built the first rockets? And then when we needed them home, we got Katherine Johnson and the Hidden Figures to get them home? And do you realize that right now the aluminum in space is manufactured in a manufacturing plant in southern West Virginia called Constellium? You're welcome.
To kind of shift gears with you a little bit, I know we've been talking about all the positive things. Higher education has seen some complex challenges in the past few years. We've had a decline in enrollment. That was, I think, magnified by COVID. We see studies now that show there's a lack of trust and faith in higher education in the American population. What do we need to do to reverse those trends and maybe give us a preview of the upcoming academic year at Marshall University?
Yeah, I'll start first with, many of us have been talking about this for some time, and I would break it into 3 buckets because it is a national challenge. It is demographics, disruption, and doubt. Demographics, an enrollment cliff coming in 2025, opposite of the baby boom. Starting in 2025, there will be 15% fewer high school seniors graduating from high school. In West Virginia, the number is 21% fewer because we're an older state. Not only will we have fewer high school seniors, but the second issue is fewer of them now see college as a necessary path. That's declining 12% a year, and in West Virginia, it's going down 18%. So you have fewer people saying education is going to be important. That takes you to disruption. Higher education cannot turn around. It has to transform. We have to reinvent ourselves just like we do in companies. We have to think about what the next chapter looks like. And there was a book produced last year by Arthur Levine called The Great Upheaval. And he said there's 3 things higher education has to deal with. The first is the demands of the knowledge economy. What are the skills necessary for students to participate in the 21st century? The second, digital. ChatGPT, large language models, generative AI, all these technologies that are now coming into our campuses. And then the third is the opportunity to recognize there are alternatives now to education. They're called YouTube, Khan Academy, Coursera, Credly, all these other things that are around us. So what we have to do is step back and say we have to reinvent ourselves. And that's happening in all of our institutions across the state. We get together as presidents of community and technical colleges and four-year schools, and every one of us are following a blueprint. We're all starting from a different place, but we're all going through a reinvention. And that's what has to happen. You've heard what we're doing at Marshall. We have a $28 million structural deficit. We have not kept that a secret. We've talked about it for 20 months. We're going to get $14.5 million of that from procurement, from software and spend, non-personnel. And then we're actually going to grow in areas that we have not been investing enough in. And between those two things, we see a path to get this profitable by 2027. And that's our game plan. Everyone's leaned in. We call it Save to Serve. We obviously know what our friends are doing. Gordon is leading a courageous effort at WVU, and every one of us are going through this reinvention. We have to believe that we can once again reimagine ourselves. Our institutions are over a century old. We know how to adapt. We just have to have the courage to drive the change.
And finally, you touched on the last question, and that is on artificial intelligence. It's no longer futuristic. With the release of these large language models like ChatGPT, it has the potential to totally change what we do. Some have trepidation about it. Some are all in. Elon Musk says we need to slow down and put some guardrails around it. What impact do you see AI having on education and more closer at home at Marshall University?
Well, Tony, I'll start first with it's going to be transformational. It's going to be transformational, and it can be incredible if we adopt it and apply it constructively and with ethics. I say that because we have been immersing ourselves, as you know, at the Marshall campus all spring and summer. We had a strategic retreat with our administration. We took our Board of Governors off-site. We've taken our deans, the chairs of all the different departments, and we have invited outside speakers in. We've read books. We've watched videos. We had Sal Khan, the founder of the Khan Academy, talk to us. We've also been running experiments, and what we have come to appreciate is it is here, and it's already in all the high schools. We had high school students sit with us and tell us about photomath and Brainly and showed us how they're doing their homework and how they actually want their teachers to acknowledge and look at it and help them think about it. So we have to think in a very constructive way. But the other thing we realize is this next generation is not digital natives, they're AI natives. They're already using these tools, and they're seeing that it can be a great thought partner, it can be a super tutor. We're also saying that it can accelerate our productivity. You told me as general counsel that you can actually start a contract 80% completed and then customize it for Marshall the last 20%. The same thing with policies. And then last but not least, it is eliminating the inequities that happen with geographies or lower income families or kids that have neurodivergent learning. It gives you the ability to customize your education for them. So there's been a great dream in education for centuries. How do I deliver a personalized learning journey for you, but to do it at scale? And I truly believe that if we lean in and learn how to use this tool, it will give us the ability to do that and allow us to leapfrog in education in ways that will help all of society. And I'll leave with these two final points. Jeff Bezos once said at Amazon, always lean into the future because the future will always win. And the second is one that I do believe, because I'm on several boards that were listed earlier by Susan. It's not that jobs are going to get eliminated by AI. It is going to be those who learn to use AI are going to take jobs away from those who do not learn. We have to embrace and think about how to use it. It's not that scary. It's like Google, but it's an interactive Google. You type in a prompt, it gives you an answer. You don't like the answer, you ask it to go a little deeper, and it gives you a better answer, and it learns, and it's getting trained by all of us. So we're going to have to put guardrails. We're going to have to work with policies. We're going to have to make sure we do the right thing. But it can transform society as we know it today if we embrace it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a powerful tool. And as you mentioned, when I'm having to do contracts or write letters, it is such a powerful tool. And it does a lot of the legwork for you and really makes you more productive and gives you more time. And Brad mentioned our strategic retreat. We read a book that the more you get into AI, I would encourage you to get a copy of and read. And it's called Impromptu. And it's a book that goes on one man's journey on the prompting of the AI. And what you put in as a prompt really has total control over what you get in result. So it's a great book and a great read. Brad, thank you for your time here today. I thank each of you for listening to us. I thank you for all of your support. You know, I was at a couple of events last week. One was the Huntington Board of Realtors. 125 people showed up. We did an event in Taze Valley last week, had 350 folks, and look at the number of people we have here today. And someone asked, why do you think all these people are showing up? And I said, it's the excitement we have going on in West Virginia. It's the collaboration. It's the growth. In my time in West Virginia, I've never seen everyone rowing the oars in the same direction, and it's producing dividends. So thank you all for listening to us today and allowing us to talk a little bit about higher education and how it fuels the economy. Enjoy the rest of your session.
God bless West Virginia.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Tony. You know, we can't leave this meeting. We always talk football at this meeting. So I did see, Brad, that the Virginia Tech Marshall game is now sold out. So we're hoping to bring home a herd win that day, right? All right. Our next speaker hardly needs any introduction, as I believe he's probably a friend to most people in this room, and that is Mr. Chris Starwald. Chris is a West Virginia native and one of the most respected political columnists in the nation. Chris currently serves as political editor for News Nation and is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. He is also a contributing editor and columnist for The Dispatch and co-hosts a media criticism podcast, Ink-Stained Wretches. Chris has also authored several books, including Broken News, How the Media Range Machine Divides America, and How to Fight Back, and Every Man a King. Chris, thank you so much for coming back to visit us today. Please join me in welcoming Chris Starwald.
Now, this is how I like a room. I like a big, heavy lunch served to get everybody nice and sleepy, and then a long talk about educational policy. And I'm just set. Anybody who actually falls asleep during my talk are totally excused. It's fine. It's healthful and important. I come to you from the nation's capital, and I can tell you very much the same thing that I realized, which was a depressing realization, 25 years ago when I moved to Charleston and met the members of the West Virginia State Legislature. I can bring a similar sentiment to you today from Washington, which is, having met these people, I ceased to wonder why things are as bad as they are, and I immediately was relieved that they are not worse. The truth, the weird truth about political life, public life in America today, is that we should be doing a lot worse than we are, right? Given how poorly run, poorly managed, poorly governed the federal government is, given the intractable, insane, tribalistic politics where everybody wants to open each other's head up like a cantaloupe, we should be doing a lot worse. But we're actually doing pretty well. If you would have asked me a year ago, would we be able to pass, would the Congress be able to pass and the president sign an extension of the federal borrowing limit without a shutdown, a default, or whatever? I would have said, I don't know. It's going to be really, really tough. Republicans have about a one-molecule majority in the House. There's an election coming up. I don't know. But they did that. They passed broadly popular, bipartisan infrastructure expansion. And if there's one thing I know people in West Virginia like, man, that's that highway money. The Robert C. Byrd chair in endowed pork barreling remains intact. And West Virginia, every American likes free stuff, but nobody likes it as much as a West Virginian. So if we look over the arc of how things are, a year ago I would have told you that the situation was pretty dire, right? The Democratic Party, you remember there's an old joke from Will Rogers. I belong to no organized political party. I'm a Democrat. Waka, waka, waka. Which team is that described now? Right? The Republicans are crazy. I have never seen a fratricidal bunch of lunatics like this Republican Party. They hate each other. They are at each other's throats constantly. They would rather lose than see another faction of their party be in charge. That's bad, right? That's really, really bad. Now, what Democrats have going for them is the gift of desperation, right? Now, Republicans all the time say, well, it can't be Joe Biden. It's not going to be, they're not going to nominate Biden. Well, you tell me what they've got, right? You tell me what else they have. Is Gavin Newsom's hair going to come in and defeat Joe Biden in a primary contest? Barring an actuarial event, the Democrats are absolutely desperate enough that they will stick with Joe Biden. And they're afraid enough of Donald Trump that as long as he is the front runner for the Republican nomination, they're not going to chance anything. They're going to gut it out with Uncle Joe and try to make it happen. And given what they all now know about Kamala Harris, she is his number one insurance policy of all time, right? Her presence, necessary presence on the Democratic ticket, means that Joe Biden is untouchable. Because it would be one thing if you said, well, could we maybe make a little noise here, throw up a primary challenge somewhere, create some entropy in the party. Whatever anybody thinks of Kamala Harris's gifts, and not many people think a lot of Kamala Harris's gifts, but whatever anybody thinks of her gifts, her position inside the party as the elected vice president and her status as the first African-American woman to hold national office makes it extraordinarily unlikely that anybody but her could succeed Joe Biden, right? So Democrats are scared enough of Donald Trump that they can do it. Because remember, when we look at poll after poll after poll after poll, what does it tell us? Democrats are less enthusiastic about their front runner than Republicans are about theirs. So there was a recent really useful poll the Associated Press does with the National Opinion Research Center. This is a great, every once in a while you get a good screen to look through and see where the electorate really is. And this is an extraordinarily useful screen. National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago, I have worked with them for years. They are great, and they do the kind of research that is not fake polling. And what it tells us is this. About 30% of Republicans like the idea of Donald Trump being their nominee. They're excited about it. They like it. There's about 20% of Democrats who feel the same way about Joe Biden. So that's bad. That looks bad. But then if we take the lid off those numbers and peer down in, when you move out into the general electorate, Donald Trump is so unpopular. He is extraordinarily unpopular. He has a 60% unfavorability rating compared to 50% for Joe Biden. But the most damning thing for Trump, of course, is he's got as many people have a very negative view of Donald Trump as have an overall negative view of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's got 37% very negative. Donald Trump has 51% very negative. And that's the little bit of headroom that creates the structural advantage for Biden in a general election. That's just the space. So we'll use a mining analogy. In politics, your favorability rating is the proven reserve. That's what's in the ground. That's where people are basically on you. Now, there's a long way. You have to go through the prep plant. You've got to get it on a train. You've got to get it shipped. You've got to do all those things to convert that raw material into votes. But that represents the people who might be open to voting for you. And the reason that Democrats are rooting for Donald Trump in the Republican primaries is because Biden has that substantial advantage. Now, within the Republican Party, it goes like this. 37% of the Republican Party is ride or die MAGA. Absolutely, all the way down, they're loving it. And the crazier, the wilder, they're getting mugshot tattoos, they're into it. And they're into it, we've talked here before, and you've heard me babble on about this endlessly. They're into it for a variety of reasons. But those reasons, some of them relate to anger. Some of them relate to frustration with the system as it is constituted. These are the kind of Trump voters who also say, you know, that RFK Jr. makes a lot of sense. And you're like, I'll have what you're having because you're having a great day. You are really feeling good. If that's like, oh, I like when he took his shirt off and he was doing those push-ups. So you have a core group of people who quite legitimately are deeply frustrated with the bipartisan establishment in America. They're sick of it not working. They're sick of nothing working. And then you have other Trump supporters who feel the way that they feel because they're Republicans. And you know what Republicans do? They fall in line, right? They're here for it. They fall in line. Okay, they did it for a Bush. They've done it. They've done it 2 Bushes, a Romney. They've done it. They've done it for John McCain. Donald Trump is the guy who they think deserves another shot at this, whether they think the election was stolen or not. They think he got a raw deal, and they think he deserves a second chance. Now, on the other side, you've got 25% of the Republican Party that hates Donald Trump like God hates sin. They hate Donald Trump like Pitt in Morgantown. They hate Donald Trump. And they're not going to vote for him. And many of them will not vote for him in a general election either. In between, you have 37%, the same percentage that supports Donald Trump, who are agnostic. They're neither anti-Trump nor pro-Trump. A good friend of mine has usefully classified the Republican Party into 3 groups. Always Trump, never Trump, and always Republican, right? These are the little old ladies that have the elephant brooch on their lapel. They put on the hat for the convention. They're Republicans. They would never vote for a Democrat, and they will support whomever the Republican Party chooses. And that's how, by the way, nominees go. As you've watched this your whole lives, nominees are struggling, and then they tip over into the inevitability category, and the rest of the party comes along behind them. And they go from having the support, in Trump's case, of 30 or 40% of the party to having 80, 85% of the party. That's how it happens. You can't, it's like a bank loan. You can't get it when you need it, but once you don't need it, they're there to give it to you. So this is the conundrum of the Republican Party, which is right now it represents nothing so much as a suicide pact, right? You've got 2 diametrically opposed groups at each other's throat, and either group is sufficient to deliver a defeat for the Republican Party in the next general election. There are more than enough, just before we get to persuadable voters, there are more than enough people inside the party. Can you imagine what MAGA, 5,000, Super X, Screaming Eagle, Donald Trump, Photoshopped riding shirtless on a lion voters would say if it was like, oh, and it's Tim Scott? What would they say? That guy's a sellout. I'll never vote for that guy, right? Even Ronnie D, even Meatball, even Ron DeSantis, who has modeled himself after Donald Trump and done everything that he can to be obsequious to the Trump electorate, they hate him. They hate him because he's opposed to their man, right? This is their guy, and they're going to defend him. The way that Republican electorate is functioning currently, half of the party is engaged in the process of choosing a nominee. The other half of the party is engaged in protecting an incumbent, right? Trump is the guy, and they're going to protect him. And every indictment and every piece of litigation and every challenge and every reference to 14th Amendment disqualification and every other thing cleaves them ever closer to his bosom, right? Because the question isn't for that half of the party, do I like Trump or do I like Vivek? Do I like Trump or do I like Pence or Scott or Meatball or whomever, right? The question is, do I stand with Trump or the Democrats? Because that's who's coming after Trump is the Democrats. So it's like the Republican Party has an autoimmune problem. The antibodies in our deeply, insanely, tribally partisan world tell Republican voters defend your guy. Defend your guy. That's what we can think back. The Bill Clinton impeachment. What? Right? What if you would have taken a survey of Democrats a year before Bill Clinton got impeached and said, well, if he had actually, Hillary Clinton said on the Today Show when Matt Lauer, LOL, when he asked her, well, if he has done these things, should he have to resign? She said, well, of course he would, but he didn't do anything. Well, as it turned out, he had done all of the things and more that had been alleged. But by the end, Democrats said, well, we have to defend our guy because this is our guy and the bad guys can't win. So Trump is benefiting from that energy in a big way. So you have half of the Republican Party that's talking about what would be the best choice, and you have another half of the Republican Party that is going to defend their guy against the Democrats. And that's the phenomenon. So then think about this. In the 2020 election, in the widest screen for swing states, if we take it out to 11 swing states, which there aren't, but if you take the broadest look at what states could be swing states, 15% of the electorate or less was persuadable. 85% of the votes are already banked. I'm here today. I'm fearless forecast. I can now project that the Republican nominee for president will win West Virginia's electoral votes. I'm ready to go out on a limb. I don't think I'll have to bring the call back. That will, because 85% of all the votes are already banked. We know what they are, not just within the states, but among the electorate. The struggle for the final 15%, and that 15% will be lower this time because we know everybody so well. If Trump does succeed in pushing his way through to the nomination, who's going to be, tell me about the undecideds in this electorate. Who are the people that say, I haven't really thought about it. I haven't really thought about it. In that same AP NORC poll, and here I refer to the University of Chicago, not North Korea, but insofar as there's a difference. No, I'm kidding. University of Chicago is great. The word clouds associated with Trump and Biden are what? Biden is what? Too old. And he is really old, right? That guy is really old. There's being in your 80s and there's being in your 80s. And what the Biden campaign and what the administration, insofar as those are two different things, have tried to do is, though my favorite was when they said, like Harrison Ford, older guys are now sex symbols and older guys are now action heroes in their 80s. And I'm thinking, Indiana Jones, Joe Biden is not. It's a struggle, right? And you can see it. Watching Joe Biden get up to give a talk is like watching an elderly dog go out on a freshly waxed linoleum floor. And you're like, you can make it, buddy. You're going to get across little steps, little steps, little steps. You're going to make it. And every American, every Democrat, every Republican, every independent has the same feeling basically about the commander-in-chief, which is, ugh. And if you love him, and by the way, one surprising thing from that survey, the percentage of Americans that have very favorable views of Donald Trump and very favorable views of Joe Biden is identical. Think about that. 18% for one, 19% for the other. Dark Brandon's brigade is about the size of hardcore MAGA. And that will tell you how a relatively small number of people has made our politics so weird and so crazy, right? So that's less than 40% of the country. But anyway, so that's Biden's word cloud. Way too old and feeble. What's Trump's word cloud? Corrupt. That's Trump's word. Trump's word has been defined in the American electorate, the persuadable electorate's mind, as one thing. He's corrupt. Now, for that half of the Republican Party that is defending their guy, what would they tell you? You got to be corrupt to beat corruption. You can't play by the rules when the game is rigged. So we've got to defy all convention. We've got to do anything necessary to defeat Hunter Biden and the Justice Department and all of the corruption that is shot through. And if our guy happens to be corrupt, we need and I think the ongoing similarities between Donald Trump and Bill Clinton become more resonant to me as time goes on, which is to say, yeah, he's a bad guy, but he's our bad guy. He gets things for us. He does things for us. He uses inappropriate methodology, which is a very good euphemism for what Bill Clinton did. But he breaks the rules, but he breaks them for us. He is our guy. And that is, when you have as many people in America who believe that the system is broken as they do, that's powerful. That is powerful for people. I come from a state where that kind of politics, should not be surprising that West Virginia is one of the strongest states for Trump in the country, because it's a state where people for years have been saying, yeah, I'll tell you what, give me that meat axe. Yeah, I'll break the rules. Yeah, I'll do what I have to do, but I'm getting it for you. I'm getting it for you. And like Huey Long in Louisiana or any number of figures in American public life, it's very effective with people who are frustrated, who have given up, and for people who don't trust things. And the reality that America is hurtling toward right now, and I'm going to get your questions ready. Bissett, you're excluded. But the reality for America is the most likely scenario right now is that we will have a rematch of the 2020 election. Now, there's a lot of football to be played between now and then, but the most likely scenario is a rematch of the 2020 election with a roughly similar result. Will that make any of those frustrated people less frustrated? Will that cause anyone right now who is despairing about the condition of politics and public life in America, will any of them take away, even if Trump won, would it cause any of those people to say, you know what, I feel good. It's a new day in America? No, the opposite. And I would just point out, as I cornily like to do, the lesson that Steve Roberts taught me, which is it's really, really hard to build something, and it's really, really easy to tear it down. Tearing stuff down is super easy because everything is broken, because we live in this fallen world, and we're all fallen people, and we all make mistakes. Finding fault, super easy. Building something especially that lasts, is hard. It requires persuasion, not division. And persuasion is risky, because when you go to persuade people, you're putting yourself out there. You're laying yourself out there that you can be wrong now. But you can't be wrong as long as all you're saying is that the other guy stinks. And we have had election after election after election in this country in which, what has the fundamental argument been? Well, my side's not that great, but the other guy is a communist, racist, whatever the other side is. That's not good enough, right? That's not good enough for the greatest country in the history of mankind. That's not good enough for what Abraham Lincoln correctly called the last best hope of earth. That is beneath the dignity of the million men who died at arms to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. We are not being worthy of our heritage. We are not living up to those things. So I'll take you back to where we started. We're getting away with it, right? Mostly the car is staying on the road. Mostly we're getting through. Mostly it's okay. And there's a lot of reason to believe, and certainly the success, if you'd asked me a year ago whether Kevin McCarthy could stay on the back of this tiger without getting eaten, I'd have said, I don't know, that's a lot of Chick-fil-A. But he did, and he's doing it. And he and Biden have been able to work together. The United States is meeting its national security obligations. Things are basically functioning. We'll have to have a little shutdown theater. I hope you all are ready for a little shutdown theater as we come to the end of the federal fiscal year. We will do that. But maybe we make it through. Maybe we just, as the song says, we'll have to muddle through somehow, and maybe we will. But I will tell you that if we keep on this way, we will run out of road. Adam Smith said there's a lot of ruin in a nation. And he's right. People who are always talking about the imminent demise of America. And as I told people in 2020, if the future of America depends on which septuagenarian white dude from the mid-Atlantic of the United States becomes president, it's time to go home and start growing turnips because we're done for anyway, right? If that election was going to decide the future of America, we're going to decide the future of America. Groups like this are going to decide the future of America in that beautiful Tocquevillian sense of these little platoons that move through life and keep America running. The people of America keep America running, not its government. And we can afford a lot of shenanigans in our system. But this, as I learned growing up playing golf at Wheeling Country Club, the best way to get good at something fast is to play for more than you can afford to lose. And I hope that in the bosom of each of you, deep in your heart, you know that the consequences of stupid politics, of bad politics, are dire, right? You know what the stakes are. You know how high it is, and that is why I'm grateful for you being here. I am grateful for Steve. I'm grateful for the chamber, and this is why this is always a priority for me to come here, is because groups like this are how you keep your country. This is exactly how you keep your country, and that's important work. While you're living your ordinary lives, while you're doing your work, loving your family, being a good neighbor, attending whatever you attend, and doing whatever you do, that's what keeps it running. Please hold your elected officials to a similar standard of decency. Please hold your elected officials to a similar standard of fealty to the Constitution, of duty to the American project, of just that fundamental Americanness that has kept us out of the ditch, mostly, for all these years. Okay, now I'm shutting up, and now you're going to ask me questions, except for Bill Bissett. Who has a question? Yes. One of my many plans. Well, the question is, who would Donald Trump have as his running mate? A panther? A semi-truck? I don't know. What would be the hardest MAGA choice? I don't know. If Donald Trump manages, and I'll just very briefly put it this way. We've had the first debate. There's like 115 days between now and the Iowa caucuses. Donald Trump has nowhere to go but down. But he's got a lot of way to go down, right? He's got a lot of room to give up vote share and still be the Republican nominee. But, of course, a weird thing happens. If you go from being 65 or 55% of the electorate and you're at 45, Ron DeSantis would kill to be at 30. But if Trump goes to 45, what's the narrative? Well, he's down. Ramaswamy, or as I like to call him, Romney-Swamy, is moving up, right? This is look, there's movement in the field. What the debates do is they cue the electorate that it's time to start thinking about this. And as you move through into persuadable voters within the party, that gets weird. Long way of saying, if Donald Trump gets the nomination, who will he have to pick as his running mate? Somebody from the 25% that doesn't like him. The only way that he could do it and be a credible national candidate would be to find the Pence 2.0, right? Find a person who is stable and steady, experienced, has Lego hair that snaps on, and find somebody like that to say, it's okay, traditional Republicans, it's not going to be a bloodbath. I'm not going to get in and be crazy. But who would do that, right? Finding the person to be Donald Trump's vice president. When a mob of your supporters has tried to hang your previous vice president, as a job search, it gets challenging. It gets hard. And all of the legal bills and all of the stuff, and that's one of the things that will be very difficult for Republicans is as they start to imagine what does the Trump administration 2.0 look like, it's a tough spot. But, let's just say Nikki Haley, so I can come up with an answer. Okay, who else has a question? Over here. Yes, sir. Do I see myself succeeding, is his question. And the answer is yes. Affirm hugely. No, I work for, of my 5 jobs, I work for News Nation, which is great and I love doing. It's the goal is to try to find some sense of balance and fairness in political coverage. And it's really hard to do because junk food sells better than arugula, right? And as I wrote about in Broken News, soon to be released in paperback, it's a demand side problem. And the cheapest way to get ahead is to do what? Give the people what they want. Serve up cheeseburgers and onion rings and let the arugula wilt on the shelves. But I do think that there is a real appetite out there for some sort of normal news. I think there really is. We're growing fast. It's succeeding. It's a good product. But, the mainstream media is not the way it is because it's not profitable, right? It is the way it is because that's the easier way. I'm always telling you people, everybody in West Virginia, you don't know what you've got in Hoppy Kercheval. You don't know what you've got. You don't know what you've got when you have anybody in the media space that tries to be decent and tries to be fair, because it's a lot more financial. It's a lot better to just turn on the blowtorch and bring people in and say, well, I'll always tell you what you want to hear. I'll never tell you that you're wrong. And I'll always tell you that it's not that the other people are wrong. It's that they're evil and you should feel good about hating them. Will you let me do one more? Can I do one more? I'm doing one more. Okay, I hope nobody had the stroganoff. All right. In the back. I'm taking one from the back.
So if we are so good at tearing things down, why haven't we torn down the current party system and rebuilt it to something that better fits where all the other people on the spectrum lie?
Well, we've torn it down. These two parties are perniciously weak, dangerously. They're rotten to the core. There's no stroke. To be, once upon a time in American history, to be the chairman or chairwoman of one of the 2 great national parties was a big deal. Now what do you get to do? You get to go on cable news and flap your lips. That's my job. And it's not a big deal anymore because the parties are weak. And the weaker the parties, the stronger the partisanship. Because instead of having an organ that can temper the impulses, how do you get elected? How do you win a primary in America? Being crazier than the person standing next to you, right? Whatever they say, I want a wall, you say I want a wall and a moat. They say I want a wall and a moat, you say I want a moat with alligators, and on and on and on. That's how you do it. Medicare for all, no. Unicorns for all. And you push out because that's how you win a primary. The important work that's going on in America, most important work generationally that's going on in American politics today are efforts to reform the primary election system. That's, of all things that we could do to increase our chances for domestic tranquility, comity, peace, and prosperity for the United States, fixing the insane way that we choose our elected leaders in the first round would be a real good one. And you all people are in for a real goat rodeo here in West Virginia in the coming year. I mean, I hope I get asked back because I just want to see. There'll be burning wreckage strewn along the sides of the roads through the coming primaries. It's going to be a real spectacle. How is that a good way to choose your leaders? That can't be a good way to choose your leaders. So in a lot of states, they're talking about ranked choice voting. In a lot of states, they're talking about nonpartisan primaries, final 2, regardless of party advance. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of ways that the moment we're living in politically is a lot like the 1970s, right? A lot like the 1970s. And that was the last time that we really looked at a lot of these things. And that's the last time that we put these structures in place. So to answer your question, or to kind of answer your question, but mostly defeat it, I will say this. We have torn down the parties, but their carcasses still remain. What we need are two functional parties that can do their jobs in a better way. And we don't have that right now. And those are the high stakes that we're talking about. Now I will stop talking entirely, and I appreciate your time. You guys have a great time here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chris. It's always interesting to get Chris's perspective, to say the least. So I encourage you to listen to Ink Stained Wretches podcast if you have not. I think you will definitely enjoy that. Our next speaker, based on Chris's political analysis of what's going on, but it is my honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker, who has always been a huge mentor to me and a friend, and that is our United States Senator Shelley Moore Capito. And Senator Capito for West Virginia has always been, the voice of reason. So we are extremely fortunate to have Senator Capito as our representative in Washington, D.C. So with that, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, gosh, thanks for that. I know everybody needs to get up and stretch, but gee, I certainly appreciate that. Kind of shocks me. I don't know whether to thank Susan or Steve for letting me follow Chris Steyerwalt. I hope Chris is Chris still in the building here? I want to tell him he didn't just insult me more than a few times. He double insulted me at the very beginning, because he says, when I moved to Charleston, I met with the state legislators 25 years ago. Guess who was a state legislator 25 years ago? And now that I'm in Washington, I meet with the Congress, and let me tell you, no wonder nothing gets done. I'm like, I'm in that group too. So I don't know. And then he says that my party is I can't even say this word, fratricidal band of lunatics. Do I fit into that too? I hope not. But I love Chris. He's great. I loved his no sock look. That's my husband went to Hampton-Sydney College, and obviously the seersucker suit and the no socks is a Hampton-Sydney tradition. So yeah, there's another Hampton-Sydney grad. But it's great to be here with you today, as always. And I look forward to this, and I've got lots to talk about, and have been home now for 5 weeks on our summer recess. And for 2 of those weeks, took a very interesting trip to Australia, New Zealand, and Hawaii, American Samoa, and Fiji, and learned so much. The genesis of the trip was it was a bipartisan, bicameral, all-women representatives trip. And I was the Republican lead sponsor in the Senate of the bill, Equal Pay for Equal Play for Team USA. And we were going to go watch the USA women's soccer team, which unfortunately we did not get there in time before they got knocked out. But we did get to go see Japan play Sweden. And it was a wonderful event, packed stadium for women's teams sports. And this year, I noticed, because I've been watching the USTA, this is the 50th year of the USTA equal pay for women and men on the tennis court. So that's an issue that's really important to me as a sports lover and a woman's sports doer at the same time. But during this trip, we had a lot of defense briefings on what's going on in Australia, New Zealand, all the islands, and of course China and Taiwan. And this is serious. This is a serious situation about a country that doesn't share our values, that wants to destroy our way of life and our economy, speaking of China, obviously, but also wants to power build all around the Indo-Pacific. And a couple of impressions that I got is that we have to keep our eye certainly on this. In the appropriations sector, we must make sure that our military is well prepared, trained, and we have the equipment and the technologies to move forward, because this is a fight that won't be a traditional fight like we see in Ukraine right now. If it ever comes to this, it will be a cybersecurity, it will be in space, it will be on the seas. And so it's very instructive for me to be a part of this. I toured our submarines, our destroyers, talked to our military, and if there's something, if you want to get your heart warmed really quickly, sit down and talk to some of our military leaders all across this country. They are phenomenal, phenomenal people. And to get that exposure was very great from that. We were in a meeting in Australia, and it was a former member of their parliament there, and we have been forging a better relationship. We had always had a good relationship with Australia, but a much stronger one, particularly from the security side, because we need them. We've been entered into an agreement to sell them submarines with the Brits and the Australians and the United States, some of our best technologies to help us patrol that area and see what's going on. But the thing that stuck with me was when this member of parliament said, the reason we work well together as Australians and Americans is because we share the same value system. We value one another, we value family, we value economic growth, capitalism. All of the things that are important to us are really what's leading. So when you're leading with your value system, that is a strong and strengthening bond that I think we share. So I wanted to let you know I had a great trip there. It was very, very interesting. For those of you who've gone, it's a long way over there, but it sure is worth it to make sure that my eyes are open as I vote for many of these things into the international situation that we see developing across the seas. So I want to thank the State Chamber as usual. This is a packed crowd. It's a huge crowd. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought once Chris started talking, maybe you guys would leave or something, but you stayed. Thank you for that. But in the room with me today, I have some folks that are very important to me. I have my new Chief of Staff, a Weirton native, J.T. Jazierski, is in the room with me. J.T. is over there. I have my State Director, the aforementioned Bill Bissett, who many of you, I think everybody in this room knows Bill Bissett. He's here with me as well. I have my Economic Development, Jen Piercy, who's with me today. I have Todd Gunter, who's my regional rep. I usually don't travel in this larger crowd, but I brought him in because I want to make sure you all get a chance to talk with him. And then I also have Adam Tomlinson with me, who is my staff director as I am the ranking Republican on the Environment and Public Works Committee. So Adam was right there. He's here somewhere, and he's worked a lot. We already had a couple of meetings today because you all know I don't do this by myself. Some people ask me that. How do you know all this? I said, you got to employ good people, have good people to help you so that you can get smarter every single day. So what are we doing? I mean, I tell you, there's lots of things I'm worried about. Some of the things that Chris alluded to. But I'm worried about the economy in general. I'm worried about when I go to the grocery store, which I do often, I have conversations, and what is it? Cost of bread, cost of milk. Just the cost to get out of the grocery store is so much more than it has been. You know, the president talks about Bidenomics as a good thing. I see it as you're paying more and you're getting less. The cost of gasoline has gone up. Mortgages. For those of us who lived through the early 1980s with those mortgage rates of, I don't know, what was ours, Charlie? It was out of way over 10. And so, you know, we don't want to go back to that. Young families can't get into the mortgage market. You can't if you need to buy a bigger house, you can't do it. If you're an older person, you can't sell your house. All the ramifications. So I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to the housing market as we also look with the commercial real estate as we are predicting a downturn. A lot of people haven't gone back to work. These cities are empty. Some of these cities are empty. Unfortunately, the federal government's empty. We just had a GAO study. This will make your hair curl, and if anything can make my hair curl, that's pretty good. And it says that in Washington, D.C., 14 agencies were polled over 3 months, and the maximum occupancy of a state or of a federal building in Washington, D.C., and that means how much of the space was taken, 25%. The federal workforce has not come back to work. And it's reflected in some of these slow regulations. When you have a 90 days to put out permits and you're still 2 years later, you still don't have your permit. It's reflected in this aura in Washington of not going back to work. They want flex schedules, or they'll just change jobs if it's not what they want. So I'm very concerned about it, and I think the president, quite frankly, is the one who has to bring people back, because it has to be government-wide. It can't be just one agency comes back and one doesn't. because that won't be as effective as it needs to be. But that's just one of my bugaboos is that. I am worried, as I said, about the spending. We saw through the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, billions, if not trillions, of dollars going out. A lot of it, we've clawed back some of it from the rescue plan because it wasn't being spent. But when the president, who called his own bill the Inflation Reduction Act, is then quoted as saying, well, I wish I hadn't called it that because it has less to do with reducing inflation. Now, the inflation numbers come down, but remember, it's still up. It's not all the way down, and it's reflected in all your businesses when you're buying materials, when you're driving your trucks, when you're doing deliveries, when you're billing for one thing or another. This high supply chain cost is reflected all over the economic spectrum, and I'm very, very concerned about it. I want to thank the West Virginia legislature for lowering my taxes and everybody in this room. I think that's a bold stroke, time to do it, and so let's give the state legislature a round of applause for that. One of the things I have worked on is permitting reform. Many of you know, in order to build something new, build a road, repair a bridge, set a water line, put a broadband tower up, put grid up, you have to have it permitted. Well, this is something that permitting a road is 7 to 8 years when they can do it in other countries in 18 months to 2 years. I always wonder, they put that I-95 collapsed bridge back up. They put that back up in 3 weeks. Why? Because they said, look, to heck with these regulations and everything. We're gonna get this back going because it was such a large corridor of loss of traffic in there. It was a nightmare. Luckily, we didn't have a lot more damage and loss of life. But we have to have this permitting reform. We still have 2 issues that we haven't addressed in PIP. We did get some permitting reform, and through the efforts of a lot of people, the Mountain Valley Pipeline will be completed through this state, through into the southern parts of this country. It was a massive achievement, but look what you had to do to get it done. You had to go all the way up to the president, and so that because the courts were never, you were just ping-ponging. They were ping-ponging through the courts. So we have to have some handcuffs on our judicial review. We can't allow the opponents of projects that are in all of our best interests to keep ping-ponging back and forth into court and getting what I think is an activist court in the Fourth Circuit to be able to push these back. So we need some judicial review. In other words, you've got this amount of time to do your judicial review. When you're finished with that, it's over. Your time's finished. And that's one of the things that we want to do. And also, how many times we've already heard last Christmas that we needed to conserve our use of electricity. Well, all around the country, we're having brownouts and blackouts. If we're not careful, if we don't build more capacity to transmit our power on our power grid, we're going to be hearing these more and more repeatedly, and they're going to have devastating effects. There's a move to electrification for everything. We don't have the capacity to do it. We don't have the capacity to do it. And so we need more transmission lines, more pipelines. I have been doing a little bit work on nuclear energy because I think it's a promise for our state. I've been a fierce defender of our coal industry and our natural gas industry for 25 years, and I remain that way, and I'm well placed to be able to do it. But I think that as we diversify, I think that the West Virginia legislature recognized in their wisdom that nuclear and these small nuclear modular plants could have a place for a baseload energy that's safe, secure, and doesn't take the giant footprint of these old nuclear plants. And so we passed the ADVANCE Act just several weeks ago. I'm hoping it gets all the way to the House. And we have the nice thing for West Virginia, I think, where we might really be able to fit in here better, is that our small nuclear plants are going to be incentivized to go to brownfield sites or maybe old coal mining sites that are already established as manufacturing or heavy use areas to be able to use our small nuclear. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, too, is congressional directed spending. Now, you heard Chris knock on this one, so that's knock number 4, I think. Congressional directed spending is the old earmarks. That's the old FBI Center was an original earmark. The ATF Center in the Panhandle was an original earmark. And so we know we've had a lot of these. But what a congressional directed spend is when you come to me and you say, let's say Brad at Marshall comes to me and says, we've got this great cybersecurity institute. We need a little help to get our program going. We're not going to need ongoing help, but a little kickstart would help us. And this is how it would be framed. So what I can do is go into the cybersecurity, what that might be, Homeland Security appropriations. I'm on appropriations committee. I can go in there and say, okay, we're spending $2 million in that account. I'll make it really simple. But, Marshall could really use $1 million of that to get their program going. Then I can say, of that $2 million, I want to earmark 2 of that, or congressional directed spend, $1 million of that to Marshall University. So you're really taking it from what's already going to be spent, and really for small states that have a tough time competing with large institutions and larger states on the grant side or on the competitive bid side, this is really, really helpful. And so I'm just going to give you an example of some of the things. That was one of the things that came to mind when I saw Brad. But for instance, in McDowell County, they have a commission building there. They needed some extra money for their courthouse. Mercer County needed some extra money for their community building. We've talked, or the Mercer Countyans in here, I've had that conversation with them many, many times. Lily's Place in Huntington, fighting a scourge on of addiction across our country, and with babies in the Huntington area. Innovative program has expanded their programs to help families and to help brothers and sisters who might be affected. So we were able to help them get some money. We also, CAMC is building out their telemedicine cardiovascular service. I'm just picking a few. There's many, many more. Preston Memorial will administer cancer treatment because of an earmark that we were able to get them. WVU's Children's Hospital received quite a bit, and now it's open. And if you haven't toured there, highly recommend it. It's a magnificent facility. And so big and small, I see Glen Adrian down here, so the Harmony Grove exit is getting congressionally directed, which is in Mountaineer Beverages up there. It's another great tour if you want to go. It's a fantastic. But they can't move those trucks through those little, and they can, but it's very disruptive, those trucks going through those little squiggly roads in Morgantown that were there when my dad was a Beta Theta Pi in the 40s. It's the same little roads. And so they just need a little jump over their exit. Sounds easy, but it's costly, but it's still, that's something that we said, this is important. We want to direct some money there. And so those are the kinds of things that congressionally directed spending are and encompass that are important to me and important to you. And they're transparent. They're all up on my website. You can't direct any dollars to any private entities. It's very very scaled down to what it was in the past. And so for those of you, and I know many of you in this room have talked with our office many times about these possibilities, we want to help you. We want to help you get the jump start to go. We don't want to sustain your program. We don't want to keep it going forever and a day. We want to jumpstart your program so you can look at all the other funding opportunities that are around, state, local, private, and otherwise, financial, private industry, to be able to get these projects out the door. And so that's what, to me, congressional directed spending is all about. And being on the Appropriations Committee makes it very, 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 very good for me. So I'd like to talk about another thing that I worked on several years ago, and we just got some of the statistics out on the New River National Park and Preserve, New River Gorge National Park Reserve. And I'm going to use this as an example. I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to start talking real fast now. As an example of how you come to me, or any of your elected officials, or all of them, and you say, this has promise. And that's what happened. People in Fayetteville, Raleigh County, they said, if we could get the national park designation, this is going to, 30% more people are going to come here. So in 2022, several years after the designation, 1 or 2 years after the designation, it's now up to $96.1 million in economic impact. It supports 1,000 jobs, 1.5 million visitors. 88% of those visitors are from out of state. So if you haven't been down there, go. It's expanding. There's going to be more parking. And now with the new state park up in Summersville, I think they're going to have a nice synergy there to really bring people in. And the best thing, have them stay. Have them stay 2 or 3 nights. Lastly, we're moving fast on broadband. And we have $1 billion almost opportunity here to get that last 271,000 residents connected. I mean, that's kind of bad that we still have that many houses that have no underserved or unserved.
So the Broadband Council in West Virginia has been working collaboratively with providers, with local government leaders, with our offices, through the state, and through Governor Justice's leadership here, because it has to start at the top, to make sure that those dollars go to that last home and that last business to be connected. And I talk about this all the time through my Capito Connect plan, because this is a personal one for me, because we can fix this. And the good news is, I think it will get fixed. It's through the infrastructure package. It's a lot of dollars, and it's going to start rolling out soon. So my last kind of thing, the impression that I had was last week, Saturday, I went to one of those really feel-good things in West Virginia that we do so well, that we take care of one another. And I think Brad talked about that, how we take care of one another. I went to the opening of the new Hoover Huskies High School that was wiped out in the 2016 flood. And I mean, it was West Virginia at its finest. Brad Paisley had promised that he would come back. He came to survey the site. He came back. He held a free concert on the football field. He played John Marshall, which was Brad's home high school. But it really gave me a great sense of what a great state we live in. What great people we have. We had graduates there who hadn't been back for years. And it's just a beautiful facility, but a tribute to out of tragedy, some really good things can happen. So as I get approached in that grocery store, I think I told you one time some lady attacked me over by the green peppers, and that does happen from time to time. I don't get green peppers anymore. I stay out of there. But I just want you to get a sense of, we live in such a great country. When you travel internationally, it's no more apparent than when you do that. But when you see our military, it's no more apparent when you do that. We all love our country. We are divided, but we can come together for the really important and difficult issues. So I'm on your side. I'm on your side of the chamber every day. I only want good things. It's an absolute privilege beyond imagination to be your United States Senator. And I have one last point of personal privilege. Today's a special day for my husband and I, because our second child was born on August the 30th, and he's right down here. Moore Capito is his birthday today, so I'll say happy birthday, Moore. And it's Warren Buffett's birthday, too. You and Warren are not quite the same. He's 93, and I think he has a few more zeros in his bank account than you do. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator Capito, for your incredible leadership in both our nation's capital and here in West Virginia. We certainly appreciate your clear and level head in D.C. And more, happy birthday. So, all right, anyone in business will tell you that healthcare is one of the most important aspects for managing benefits. This next discussion is sure to provide some great insight into the ever-changing dynamics and options in the healthcare field. I ask that our next three speakers make their way to the stage while I'll introduce them. First is Albert Wright. I've had the honor and privilege of working with Albert. I'm on the Thomas Health Systems board, and we were recently purchased by WVU, and I've had the pleasure of working with Albert. He's the president and CEO of the WVU Health System and the board chair of Peak Health. Albert has led a fundamental transformation of the WVU Health System, moving it from a holding company to a fully integrated network of 23 hospitals that are anchored by a 700-bed academic medical center and 150 children's hospital bed in Morgantown. Prior to coming to West Virginia, Albert had a variety of senior leadership positions in some of the country's most prestigious healthcare systems. So, Albert, we are very fortunate to have you at WVU and to have you in the state of West Virginia.
Thank you.
Next is Clay Marsh, and Clay serves as the Chancellor and Executive Dean of WVU Health Sciences. He leads WVU's Academic Health Sciences Center, including its schools, dentistry, medicine, nursery, pharmacy, and public health. He also serves as WVU's Chief Health Officer. A national leader in pulmonary and critical care medicine, Dr. Marsh serves as the state's lead representative in areas of health, health education, and academic medicine. And we all know Dr. Marsh's face because during the COVID pandemic, Dr. Marsh became a household name in the state when the governor appointed him as the COVID-19 czar. So we're very excited to have Clay here as well. And last but not least is my friend Tony Caridi. And Tony has one of the most recognizable voices in West Virginia, having broadcast WVU football and men's basketball since 1996. He first came to Morgantown in 1984 as a reporter for WAJR, and Tony coined his popular phrase that we all say every week, "It's a great night to be a Mountaineer, wherever you may be." And that was 2005. In addition to his many other responsibilities, he currently hosts WVU football coach and WVU basketball coach radio shows for the Mountaineer Sports Network. I also have my claim to fame with Tony is he made me the coolest mom ever one night. For those of you moms and dads who have middle school kids and you're on a conference call with clients and they're in the car because you're driving them to soccer practice and you're threatening them, don't say a word, I'm on a conference call with the client. So I had a client from out of state, and I was telling them that I thought they really needed to be on Tony Caridi's show for advertising. They really needed to meet Tony. And the client was like, well, okay, let's do that. I said, okay, great, I'll call Tony tomorrow. Out of the mouth of Babes, my then 13-year-old said, Mom, you know Tony Caridi? And the client laughed for a minute and said, well, I guess Tony is really as popular as you say he was. So I got to be the cool mom, and we got some advertising on Tony's show. So with that, we'll turn it over to Tony. Thank you all for being on our panel today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's wonderful to be here, and I do appreciate it. And what's the sports guy doing with the healthcare guys? That's the question I think I heard buzzing down the hallway. Well, here's the reality of it all. I've been so bored. There was nothing going on within WVU sports this summer. I just had to find something to do. No, seriously. As Susan alluded to, I came to West Virginia in 1984. So this coming Saturday will officially mark the start of my 40th season covering WVU athletics. And when I came to West Virginia, I thought it would be a 6-month run in the broadcast thing, climb the ladder, and move on. But it didn't happen that way. Instead, I decided to stay here in West Virginia. It was the greatest decision I've ever made in my life. And I've had our family here, married here, 3 boys who have been raised here in the state of West Virginia. And so I have taken a great appreciation and an understanding of the state of West Virginia. I literally have been from Weirton to Welch, Martinsburg to Matewan, and all points in between. And as a result of that, and as a result of learning about this state, I also know the challenges that this state faces, and it comes specific to health care. So this afternoon, we're here to talk about what could be the next generation and what is the next future as we look ahead toward making West Virginians more and more healthy. And that becomes our conversation point today with both Clay and with Albert on Peak Health, which is a program which has been designed by West Virginians for West Virginians with the mission to make West Virginia better and to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to our health care and our health care choices. And as I talked with the folks involved, both with Clay and with Albert and with Ben, who's the president and CEO, Ben Gerber, the president and CEO of Peak, I found out that this program was designed in large part by front-facing doctors who know the challenges more so than anyone else. And that is where we are, and that's where this program is going. And with Peak Advantage coming, it's Medicare Advantage, and its Peak Advantage program beginning in October here in West Virginia in 29 of the counties, it is moving forward. So with that being the premise, let's begin the discussion. Gentlemen, state of the state, so to speak. Let's start off. What was and what is the thinking behind Peak Health?
Let me go. So the real inspiration, Tony, around Peak Health is to allow us to transform the way that we approach people from sick to well. And let me just expand for just a second on healthcare in the United States. So we spend about $12,900 per person in the United States, about $4.3 trillion a year. And we have worst outcomes of any westernized country in the world. Over the COVID pandemic time and before, we lost 2.7 life years, which puts us about 6 years behind our peer group on average countries. And when you look at West Virginia, we trail the best state in the country by about best state in the country, which is Hawaii, by about 6 years. Over the last 3 years, it was the first time really in our documented history this century where children that were born in the last 2 or 3 years are less likely to get through adolescence than children born before, and in fact have about 4 times less likelihood of being able to reach that level than children in other comparable countries. And so as we look at healthcare, and we like to think that we provide great healthcare, and I'm sure Marshall Health and Mountain Health and other healthcare providers would say the same, with caring providers and really smart people, it is the whole structure of the way that we are reimbursed and the structure of healthcare in America that really needs to be changed. And it needs to be changed so we can help people stay healthy. Instead of being great service centers and garages for cars, we need to produce the better car. And that's really the inspiration around Peak Health.
I'll add on to that. I agree with everything my partner Clay shared. And it's kind of neat. Peak is a partnership between WVU Medicine, Marshall and Mountain Health in Huntington, and Valley Health in Winchester, Virginia, that also has a number of care sites in the Eastern Panhandle. And all of our organizations, along with some other healthcare providers in the state, we've done a great job, I think, in the last decade of building out access around the state. As Susan shared earlier, our health system, WVU Medicine, has built up our academic medical center in Morgantown and have care points, all across the state at this point. The next decade is really going to be on how do we change and work better with the payment of healthcare and the provision of healthcare. I was on this stage last year when we were first launching Peak for our own employees, and we're using Peak to process claims for our own employees and our owners right now. We will launch our Medicare Advantage plan in 2024. But when I was on this stage last year, I gave the analogy of there was a time where your phone, your email, your camera were all separate. Those things, though, as we went into smartphones, became interoperable, easier to use, and more advanced than ever. We've got to do the same thing between the provision of healthcare and the payment of healthcare, right? Because as the patient, you've got this complex healthcare system on this side, you've got the complex insurer on this side, oftentimes serving as a middleman. We've got to put that together in a way where we create simplified healthcare, very interoperable, easier to understand, especially for our seniors, so that we can create new payment models that move us away for payment for sick care, as Clay shared, and move us towards payment models where we are all incentivized to keep our patients as healthy as possible and in the lowest cost setting as possible. And we start to invest in some of those social determinants of health, things like transportation, in-home monitoring, in-home care modifications, food insecurity, to really start to improve the health trajectory of the state of West Virginia from being a state with a lot of health challenges over the next generation to becoming a role model state for great health care.
Albert, one of the points you just made was sick care, and I'll direct this to you, Clay, now. Let's talk about sick care versus health and wellness care. Where do we stand as a country? Where do we stand as a state? And what is the end game? What could that mean if it's accomplished?
Well, thanks, Tony. And what Peak Health will allow us to start to do is start to support people on not only their health care journey, but really on their life journey. And it will really benefit, we believe, not only the individual people who will be able to participate in Peak Health, but will also allow us in West Virginia to become a leader in defining the solutions that will work to improve the health of our population. And the thing about me personally, from coming back to West Virginia and during COVID-19, it was really gratifying to see how everybody coming together, working together with the single focus at protecting the lives and the health and the well-being of our citizens, how that moved people, how that allowed us to do much better than we were predicted to do. And this is an equal opportunity. And I think it's really a transformative one in that the things that help people stay healthy and live long and well are things like sense of purpose, your social connections, the sense of community, your social capital, the networks that you have, the ability to make an income, the ability to feel valued for what you do. And those are not elements that today healthcare systems are incentivized to support. But in the future, those types of things, the American dream, helping people get training, education, helping people find a job, those are the things that can really change the arc of health and health care in West Virginia. And we would love to be at the front part of helping the rest of the world see how that's done.
One of the things that we all experience when we deal with healthcare is oftentimes the complexity or the hurdles. So I'm going to throw a complicated phrase and ask you to, quote unquote, dumb it down for us. So when you guys talk about integrated delivery and finance system, bring that to real world terms.
I'll take that one, Tony. So that is essentially, we're going to take the healthcare system and the insurance system and put them into one, right? And what we're going to do different is, we are not going to treat the insurance product, Peak Health, as a profit center. It is going to be there to serve the healthcare system, right? And so in today's system, to Clay's good point, we live in what's called a fee-for-service system, where we are currently reimbursed as healthcare providers for what historical insurers will pay for, and that's usually what you end up providing. Peak will, as a cost center within the healthcare system, will simplify the administrative burden, it will simplify the co-pays, it will simplify the prior authorizations, and will actually change that payment system to a flat rate per patient to the healthcare system each year. So we move away from what are the things we get paid for to what are the things we need to do to keep you as healthy as possible and in the lowest cost setting. So you are essentially freed up as a healthcare provider, as a physician, as a caregiver, to start to make investments in things that will keep people healthier and create that generational change. We will still be very good at sick care, right? Because we have a lot of sick patients, and even if we all eat nuts and berries and run 5 miles a day, unfortunately, there's still going to be kids born with congenital abnormalities. There's still going to be people that get cancer. There's still going to be traumas on our highways. But we want to start to make investments that as we can keep people healthier, as we can make sure every West Virginian is getting screened for colon cancer and breast, mammography, or whatever the case may be, how do we start to make those investments to keep our population healthier? And by integrating, by dumbing it down or simplifying and making it one synchronized operation between the payment for health care and the provision of health care, we're able to make those kind of changes. So it's a tremendously exciting time.
Clay, what do the docs think of what it is that you're doing?
Tony, the physicians and other healthcare workers are extremely excited about the opportunity for us to truly not only deliver, but start to define what health is. For me, health is really measured by your body's real age, your biological age. And the lower your body's real age is versus your birthday age, the healthier you are. And the higher your body's real age is versus your birthday age, the less healthy you are. And we know that we can have young people that are old and old people that are young by that definition. And the real goal of any physician or healthcare provider is to help that person in front of them heal. And part of what we want to do is explore what are those critical features, what are those opportunities that we can do in a reproducible way that could be scaled from West Virginia to other places and sustained for our populace that would be able to deliver that dream. But that is a dream of all providers, to heal the people that they are dealing with and not to wait until they get sick, but to give them that resilience and that opportunity to reduce their biological age in a way that we can help them define.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that's been a great benefit for us so far and will continue to be from a provider standpoint is knowing who to call, right? So if one of our WVU medicine providers has an idea or a challenge in peak, they can call Clay or I, and we can help get that solved immediately. You're not working through a third party. That's true with Buffy and Kevin and Huntington, with Mark Nance and Valley Health. So just having that interoperability of being in your network and that nimbleness has been very well received by our providers, and we're able to take their feedback and design our plans around what they want us to do.
Other health systems have attempted and tried, some successful, some have not been successful. What is your takeaways from what you've seen, and why will Peak be successful?
You know, I think you always have to learn from history. And we are not the first organizations, or we're not the first organizations to create our own provider-sponsored health plans. I think one of the mistakes that others have made, though, is trying to make their health plan a profit center as well. And so you don't really break that payment model. It's very important that form follows finance, that you're investing in the things that make people healthy. And if your health plan is thinking like a historical insurance company of how do we remain profitable, I don't know that you're able to move away from that historical fee-for-service payment model by making Peak a cost center. And a cost center, for example, our IT department is a cost center. Our human resources department, our legal departments are cost centers. Peak will be embedded in Valley Health, Mountain Health, Marshall Health, WVU Medicine. I think that allows us to create those new alternative payment models, like the capitation model I talked about earlier, that really builds a better mousetrap than we've had in the past.
I 100% agree. And the one thing that I would add that I think is a really extraordinary opportunity, we are doing work at WVU Medicine, and in collaboration with all of our other partners, including Marshall University and others, but to try to solve real problems of real people. And we've attracted a lot of attention from a lot of federal NIH agency leads, et cetera. And we're doing work now that might be able to help people reduce the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease, of helping block brain channels that make people feel the addiction that causes them to overdose from drugs, or to perhaps use now first in person to implant electrodes in brains of people that have had strokes or have spinal cord injuries, where we may be able to return function to them, or even perhaps bypass some of these injured areas of the brain and the spinal cord. And Peak Health, by integrating this network, will allow us to bring these capabilities to people of West Virginia first. And I think that as we look at the ability to pay for health care and to provide excellent health care, these are elements that may not be cost effective to do if you didn't have a model like this. But this really does give us the opportunity to bring our best and brightest people and ideas and capabilities to people of West Virginia first.
Well, let's pull that thread a little bit more, right? Because think about the Alzheimer's piece. There are mechanisms we can do and are exploring to start to screen for Alzheimer's disease earlier than it's recognizable in its onset. But if those things are not paid for by historical insurance standards, you end up not doing them. When you are in total control of the patient's life and insurance and health care, you start to think differently as a provider, and you start to make investments to try to keep that patient healthy and diagnosed early, so you're much more treatable early on. some of the neat things we're doing at like the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute with ultrasound technology for refractory addicts, we can make those investments in peak health, whether a traditional health insurer would pay for them or not. So the freedom to become innovative in improving care is a big reason why we think this is critical to change the health trajectory of the state of West Virginia.
Would you say that is the secret sauce to what you're doing?
I think it's a big part of the secret sauce. I think also, we use at WVU Medicine Epic as our electronic medical record, and some in the audience may have like a WVU MyChart account. We're actually processing claims in Epic at Peak Health, which gives immediate real-time interoperability for all providers to see everything that's happening to our patients. So when you get that interoperability, Tony, that's going to allow us to decrease administrative burden. Just the number of prior authorizations and copays we have. We want to simplify that. And, between the interoperability and the changing payment models, time will tell if it plays out exactly like we think it's going to, but I think that's going to be the secret sauce that allows Peak Health to be very successful in time.
And I would just add briefly, based on you here today and the folks that we've heard talk, that the ultimate secret sauce is all of you, all of us. Mm-hmm. And it is really about not only being in a beautiful state, but having beautiful people that deserve the best. And we are able today to start to provide a much different experience and a much better one to help extend and expand the quality and the length of the life of all of our people. And to not act on that is really quite irresponsible, in my opinion. So I think this is not only the right thing to do, it is an incredible, exciting opportunity for West Virginia to help inform the rest of the world how to do it.
Open or closed network, where does it stand?
Relatively open network. As you can see, we've got multiple partners that are owners. We contract with folks throughout the state. Our intention is to be an open network provider. We will have care points around the state, some of our own facilities, some facilities that are owned by entities outside of the owners you see on the screen. We'll continue to contract with those folks and try to be as open as possible. I mean, there are a lot of great healthcare providers in the state of West Virginia, and there are a lot of patients that need great care. So we're trying to be as collaborative as possible. That's a little bit of our secret sauce as well, Tony, that a lot of times when you look at other providers that have done this, and there's some good ones out there, the Geisingers, in Pennsylvania, the Intermountain Health Cares out in Utah. A lot of times they're very narrow networks. That's not essentially what we're trying to do here. This is more about, openness and working with partners to meet our common goal as nonprofit healthcare organizations.
As I said when I began, that coming in October, Peak Advantage will come out as a Medicare Advantage product in 29 of West Virginia's 55 counties. Why go Medicare Advantage before commercial plan?
Take that one. Great question. I think we actually start to launch, and open enrollment starts, I think it's October 15th October 15th. And then the first plans in those 29 counties will go live on 1/1/24. We hope to be in 55 counties someday. Start with Medicare. That is our fastest growing population. That is, our seniors, our Medicare eligible, are some of our most vulnerable patients. We want to, and also starts to give us significant scale and the ability to meet around the state. So Medicare is a good starting point for us and allows us to take care of those vulnerable citizens and combat those social determinants of health and keep our seniors as healthy as possible as they move into their golden years.
Clay, you were to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to what Albert said, that, we are an older state. And so as we look at the care of our population, this is a population that not only do we in West Virginia need to figure out how to take the best care of, but we do in our country, as the country's population is aging too. So this product and this population makes a lot of sense, but to me this is step one, as we then start to determine how we can help provide the best care for everybody in West Virginia. And as we said, and this is true in our country, that every group of people until you're 75 years old, we have worse outcomes, lesser lifespans in our country than in any other westernized country, and that comes with us paying about twice as much for health care as the next leading country. So our model does not work to give us the outcomes we want to get, and that is really the inspiration around Peak, and to provide that care and caring on the front side so we don't have to spend so much rescuing people from failure repeatedly over and over again.
Also, Tony, Gordon's retiring in 2 years, so we've got to be ready for him.
Healthy as a fiddle. Let me ask you this, final couple of minutes here. We're going to open it up to questions, so if you have something that you would like to ask, by all means. But before we do that, what do you want people to take away from here today of what Peak Health is and what it's going to become?
I'll start and let Albert do the anchor part of this. Peak Health, to me, is our effort to create a collaborative product that will integrate different payment methods, a sort of an insurance product that will integrate with the providers of health care in the state of West Virginia. And this is from West Virginia to West Virginia. This is from care providers to people that they want to impact. And it gives us a wonderful opportunity to understand how we can help all of our people live long and well, as opposed to perhaps some of the metrics that we see today. And for me, it is an amazing opportunity in innovation and trying to look at how we can work with other partners like Mountain Health, Marshall Health, and others to be able to provide this new approach to healthcare. And if we can do that here, then I think we can be a model for everybody everywhere else.
Tony, when you first moved here 40 years ago, you had a rotary dial phone on your wall. You had a camera that you'd bring to things like the Business Summit. And in time, those all melded into the phone that you carry in your pocket, right? And you could check your email, you could take your pictures, you can call, you could text, whatever the case may be. That's essentially what we're doing with Peak Health. We've historically had providers, we've historically had insurance companies. We are now going to have integrated delivery and finance systems. So your insurance and your healthcare system becomes one, and you'll start to see the improvements just like you did when you moved to that smartphone that you have integrated care and delivery. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, and I believe that's what we're going to accomplish.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Questions? Anyone out in the crowd have a question for either Dr. Marsh or Albert? Left you in stunned silence. Yes, go right ahead. What are the barriers to accomplishing this?
It is ridiculously more complicated to create an insurance company than I would ever imagine. So it's just a lot of challenges to get that infrastructure in place. And that's why we started slow, started with our own employees to make sure we had that expertise. I don't know of very many providers that are using their same electronic medical record that they provide care with to actually process claims. So that's been very difficult to build, but I think it will be the right thing long term because we've got true interoperability. So we didn't cut corners in doing that, but just the challenges of creating that and explaining the concept of what does it mean to bring your insurance and your health care together. So just getting people to understand the benefit of that is a challenge. But I think, by using our own employees, we've got, 35,000 people now that are saying, wow, this really works. And they tell their loved ones, and we keep making improvements.
I would imagine that would probably be the biggest thing, right? Word of mouth. Once you go through a situation where there's no longer hurdles to jump over, but it's smooth, that ultimately makes people go, I need to do that.
The other thing I would just add to what Albert said is the biggest barrier to anything that's different is the fear of change. And so I think that that's another thing that organizationally we've committed to because we believe so deeply this is the right thing to do for each one of you and all people in West Virginia.
We do have Steve, go right ahead. Question is up front, do you expect for companies to have reductions in what they are paying?
And I will say that with all of the built-in advantages that by doing this and the streamlining of administrative burden, if we don't lower the cost of health care, we have failed. So our true intention is to not only provide better, more preventative, proactive care for our patients, but also to lower the cost of care. I know when we rolled out Peak Health for our own employees, we actually lowered their premiums. And so as we go through this, a major pillar of what we're doing is to lower the cost of care. And if we can do that, then yes, once we start to roll this out into individual businesses in the future, we should be very competitive in doing that.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Peak Health is a licensed insurance product in the state of West Virginia and regulated by the West Virginia Insurance Commissioner. Fact check me, Ben, if I'm wrong. I'm correct.
Anyone else? Well, just like in a sporting event, our final seconds are coming off the clock. Thank you so much for being a very attentive audience. We appreciate it. Special thanks to Dr. Clay Marsh and Albert Wright. Thanks for being with us, and have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Clay. All right. Thank you all for that wonderful presentation. It is just a really innovative look at healthcare and how we provide that. And I'm anxious to see in the next year to 2 years the success that comes out of this. So our next guest speaker is also a really good sport because he and I have had a really interesting conversation in the corner that I did not want my Southern West Virginia accent to screw up his name. And so he's assured me I couldn't screw it up, but here goes. So Gerardo Familiar. Perfect. He says it's perfect. I'm not sure if it is or not, but he's a great sport about it. He is an accomplished leader who serves as the president of Chemours Advanced Performance Materials. He has a strong background in sales, marketing, strategy, product management, and finance, and brings over 20 years of invaluable experience to his role. Previously, he was the general manager at Chemours Hydrogen Venture, where he spearheaded the development and execution for Chemours Hydrogen portfolio. He is going to be interviewed by our very good friend, the president of the West Virginia Manufacturers Association, Rebecca McPhail. So with that, I will welcome them to the stage. Thank you for being here. Not too bad. That's right.
It was perfect.
Good afternoon. We appreciate the Chamber having us here today. I have the privilege of working with the state's manufacturers, and today the privilege of talking to Gerardo with Chemours. Chemours is a fantastic West Virginia company with a long history here, and I think we'd like to start by hearing a little more about you and letting everyone else know about Chemours.
Absolutely. So first of all, the name was pronounced perfectly. So it was Gerardo, but it could be Gerardo, or it could be Jerry. So that's easy. I have more than 30 years of experience in different industries. In Chemours, I've been working for the last 20 industries like oil and gas, chemical, and now in clean energy and advanced electronics. If you think about Chemours, let me just by introducing a little bit about Chemours. Chemours is a company that has around 7,000 employees, and it's a $7 billion company approximately, and has presence all around the world. Where do you see it in your day life? It's everywhere. So the paints that you have in your house, the base of your paints, it's actually products that we produce. It's a white pigment. When you open your refrigerator, the refrigerant gases that makes your refrigerator to work, that's us. And then you have fluoropolymers that are in many, many applications like your cell phone, your car, the airplanes, so in many applications where we are. Specifically, the business that I lead is the advanced performance materials. That business is the business that has the presence in West Virginia, and we're very proud about that. We have 2 facilities. In those 2 facilities, we have around 600 employees, and one of them started working about 90 years ago. We produce chemicals that goes into nylon and other things that we enable. The other facility, Washington Works, that one is in Parkersburg. In that one, that one has been there for around 75 years. In fact, in September is going to be the 75-year anniversary. And what we do there is to produce different products that goes in industries like oil and gas, hydrogen, electrical vehicles, semiconductors. So that's a little bit about the things that we do.
Well, having grown up in the Kanawha Valley, actually going to high school in Bell, West Virginia, just a few miles from the Bell plant, very familiar with Chemours and its history in West Virginia, but really interested in where the company's going. Can you share a little bit about your future with us?
Absolutely, and I can talk about the future in West Virginia because we're very excited. As we speak, we're working right now on increasing capacity and our ability to produce more materials, specifically materials that will be focused on helping our country to have national security and be able to be very competitive. So those are materials that goes into the semiconductor industry. So every time that you're building a new fab that will be producing the chips for the United States, all of those fabs requires these materials in order to be able to operate. And we're very excited because this is going to be produced in West Virginia by the great people of West Virginia. And then this is not the only step in this journey. What we're thinking is that in this journey, we will continue bringing more things into West Virginia. Why? Because what we have seen in our experiences gives us is that in West Virginia, there is an amazing community, there is great talent, and the truth is that those 2 things together really brings innovation and give us an ability to compete in a great way.
So we heard this morning in an earlier meeting from our senators that manufacturing really is an economic engine in West Virginia. So share with everyone here a little bit about the economic impact of Chemours, jobs, indirect jobs. Take us down that path a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. So when you think about the current operation, we have around 600 employees. But when you think about the ecosystem, when you think about the contractors and all of the force that is around supporting what we do, we're talking about 1,500 people that are actually interacting with us. And when you think about the future, about the investments, the 3 focus areas that we have in the company, one of them is semiconductors. Another one is hydrogen, because what we do is we produce materials that are in the heart of producing hydrogen. And the third thing, it's about electrical vehicles. So when you think about those 3 things and about the future, what it means in terms of numbers, it means more jobs. It means our ability to potentially attract other value chain players that will use these materials. So we see a bright future in front of us.
That sounds great. I think, again, economic engine is a good description of manufacturing in West Virginia, and we've certainly, even today, heard a little bit more about some growth plans. But one of the challenges that we have, and I was glad to see earlier our 2 universities collaborating on some solutions for workforce development in West Virginia. That is an ongoing challenge. Tell us a little bit about some of the workforce initiatives that Chemours participates in to help West Virginians realize the great jobs that you provide.
Absolutely. And I would like to start by giving full credit to West Virginia University in Parkersburg, because there has been 20 years of collaborations with Chemours. And in these 20 years, we have been able to do, in my opinion, great things. So just to give you a couple of examples, we have a program that is called Learn and Earn. So you have students that are currently in the university, and they want to start working And what we have been able to find is a way to give them an opportunity to start working with us as they are studying. It is amazing. It's amazing because the new generations are coming with so much energy, and they really have all of this spirit to win. And that's what we need. The other program that we have, well, in this first program, we have about 65 people today that has been actually participating. Another program that we have with the university is that it's a technician program. So what we do, that's about our employees. We have some of our employees that we're really helping them to develop their skills, to make sure that they can go to the next level in terms of technical skills. And this has been also a big success for us. Today we have around 125 people that has been going through the journey, and it's amazing. And there is another challenge. The truth is that if we want to grow, if we really believe that West Virginia will be a growth engine for what the future will be for the United States, we need to start with younger generations. So what we have been doing there is working with high schools, with elementary schools. And what we have been doing is focusing on STEM. So doing things from scholarships to voluntary work and making sure that we can help the new generations to be exposed to this. And when I say new generations, one core value that we have in Chemours is diversity. So we're talking about anybody, right? We would love tomorrow to see many women being part of the workforce with us, right? Today we have a good footprint, but we want more, right? We want more men, we want more women, so we want more of every diversity.
Well, and I do have to say a thank you to Chemours, one of the first companies to step up when we established some school-based programming almost 10 years ago now in our West Virginia schools, doing just exactly what you said is important to do, starting early and getting in front of these kids often and showing them the educational pathways and the opportunities, as well as the quality companies that they can work for and stay in West Virginia. So thank you for that. I think I have one more question for you, and maybe we'll make up a little time this afternoon for folks, but tell me what you'd like to see more of in West Virginia with APM growth, with all the opportunities ahead of us. What would you like to see more of here in the Mountain State?
Well, I would say that, so we're very happy and pleased with everything that we have and that we see, right? Strong community, strong people, a lot of collaboration. I would say that there are three things that would enable more growth for us as a community, as Chemours, and as a state. One of them is we need to move fast. So the markets are moving very fast in terms of finding places to enable the materials that will be required for these value chains. So when you think about the CHIPS Act, we must have these value chains up and running in the next couple of years. What does it mean? It means that we need to make sure that we build the infrastructure very quickly. So it means that we need to move at the same speed that the needs are moving. So that would be one. How to achieve that? It's a combination of making sure that we have the investments, to make sure that we get the permitting, to make sure that we have the right people ready to be there. So the first one is to move fast. The second one is collaboration. And collaboration, I think that just to maintain what we have or enhance what we have. And the third one, it's about talent. I think that the work that we are doing, it's something that we need to do it together, not just us, with other companies, because we need more talent and we need to make sure that we find those new jobs and more jobs for the people in West Virginia.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Steve and your team at the Chamber, thanks for giving us the opportunity this afternoon. And we'll look forward to another few days of great business here at the Greenbrier. Thank you.
For Rebecca and Gerardo. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mike Basile of Spillman, Thomas, and Battle. I'm going to channel one of our favorite legislators with whom I walked in, Speaker Hanshaw. We need to stand in recess for 30 seconds while we add 2 chairs for the panel. We'll be right back with you. All righty, let's proceed. We'll reconvene. I want to introduce our Energy Investment in West Virginia panel. First, we have Mateo Aramillo, co-founder and CEO of Form Energy. Come on up, Mateo. Jonathan Hodson, president of Omnis Global Technologies. Jonathan, please join us. Wherever you'd like. Yeah. Dr. Rudy Olson III, director of Consol Innovations. Dr. Olson. And last but not least, Mr. Emil Avron, vice president of business development, Dominion Energy. Emil, please join us.
You.
You may be seated, gentlemen. Thank you. It's a mannerly panel. Rather than traditional bio introductions, what we thought we would do is provide video snippets of each of the respective companies prior to the inaugural question that I will pose to each. We'll begin with you, Mateo. Let's cue the Form Energy video, please.
All right, is my mic on? Okay. I think there's supposed to be some music, but I'll just give a quick voiceover here. This is a video of the factory that we're building there in Weirton, West Virginia. And the thing we are building is batteries. So we're building a new kind of energy storage system. It's based on iron, so we're reversibly rusting iron, which is very, very low cost, as most folks know. And that means that we can provide a very different thing to the electric system than what's out there today. It means that we can provide a lot of reliability into the system with these very low-cost and large-scale batteries. So this is the factory that we're building. It's obviously on the historic Weirton Steel site. We'll be done with the building in early Q1 next year, and we'll start producing goods for our customers towards the end of next year. So we're really going at it, and we're really happy to be here.
Thank you, Mateo. Mateo, please delve into the groundbreaking technologies or approaches that Form Energy is taking to revolutionize the sector, please.
Well, when we started the company about 6 years ago, I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO. And when we set out to start the company, it was really with the idea that we would solve a problem that was not currently being solved, which was, how do you build a battery that is so low cost that you can provide much more reliability into the system? We know, obviously, that weather goes away for a few days on end, right? It's not just that the sun goes down every night and also comes back every morning, but it's that we have weather events. We've got winter storms, we've got heat domes, you name it, and we need to be able to account for all of it, right, in our increasingly complex electric system. And so we wanted to solve that harder problem. All the existing technologies are just too expensive to do that. And so we started with a blank sheet of paper and said, what gets us there? What's entitled to go do that? And so early on, we identified iron air as a very compelling technology that we started with in the lab. And initially, we were an R&D company. We're 5 guys as an R&D company. We became an engineering company, and we are now becoming a manufacturing company. So it's this last phase of the transition that I think is probably the hardest, to be perfectly candid. It's the one that requires the most amount of money and the most amount of commitment, frankly. But we are taking this iron air technology and commercializing it for the first time to solve some of these really big challenges on the electric system.
Thank you, Mateo. Our next question is for Dr. Rudy Olson of Consol Innovations. Let's forward the question by video, please.
Anybody who's done new product development, trying to take something from a piece of paper to a large-scale manufacturing platform, realizes it's a really difficult task. Once you've done it one time from beginning to end, you have a real feeling of accomplishment. At the highest level, we make carbon foam and produce solutions for people using that carbon foam. There are products that we can make that are carbon-based, and we can do it from coal. If you look at that coal as a carbon ore, that's a very large amount of material that you can utilize to create products for people, for industry, and for U.S. military.
So, Rudy, many in the crowd are familiar with Consol Energy. This is Consol Innovations. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the difference between the two? And you're welcome to use a prop if you have one.
Sure. So, for those of you who know Consol Energy, they've been around for about 160 years. It's about as long as the state of West Virginia. I think Consol started to ask themselves, what are we going to look like when we're about 320 years old? And decided maybe we start to look at coal as a carbon ore instead of as a fuel. And so we created Consol Innovations to separate ourselves and to really focus on that concept where the intention is to make carbon products that are diverse, that are sustainable, have long-range growth, to where we're capitalizing on these technologies, keeping them here in West Virginia, and vertically integrating into them. So, 4 main areas we're looking at: building products, batteries, aerospace, and military. And I did bring some show and tell here if anybody would like to see some. Catch me on the way out.
Thank you, Rudy. Next up, Jonathan Hodson, President of Omnis Global Technologies. How about a video? Jonathan, what technologies or material is your company currently utilizing, and why was an energy-rich environment key to your site location in southern West Virginia?
Well, West Virginia was a fantastic location for us because of its natural given raw materials, resources, the abundance of a lot of the waste products here that we were able to take advantage of. What we use in our composite is primarily fly ash and sand, which is more than abundant throughout this region and quite frankly has been deemed a liability by many. We find it to be one of the best building materials available, and very similar to Consol, we've looked at what West Virginia has in a natural resource-rich environment, not for 150 years, but we're at 3 years now, and what can we utilize there to bring to the country, to bring to the people of West Virginia that allows to build a more sustainable, higher quality building practice that allows you to put together or assemble something with relatively low skilled labor in a very short period of time that can be of the highest quality product.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, Emil Averin, Vice President of Business Development of Dominion Energy. Video, please. And the Timpani Award goes to Emil. Emil, tell us a little bit about the groundbreaking technologies that your company is using.
Sure. So, we're obviously one of the largest nuclear owner and operators in the country. I bring that video because I'm excited to say that we are actually exploring, evaluating, and developing a site here in the Great Mountain State of West Virginia for a future nuclear facility. Very exciting opportunity. There are new advanced technologies coming to the market in the range of 200 to 400 megawatt size facilities. This could be a site that could host multiple units. And it's a great complement to all of the other generation technologies that we need for a diverse portfolio to maintain reliability, affordability, while also becoming more clean. So these technologies that are coming to market, there's about half a dozen or so that are in that size class range. And I think one of the largest benefits to some of these, normal kind of large-scale nuclear facilities take about 10 hours to ramp up from minimum load to full output. Some of these new advanced technologies can do it in 10 minutes. That is the holy grail for electric utilities, right? To be able to ramp up and down, meet the demand when it's needed the most, complement, renewables when the wind or the sun is not shining or blowing in reverse order, and be able to do it reliably and cost effectively. So really excited about this. We're looking at both Virginia and West Virginia. Why West Virginia? Great business climate, business friendly, has an incredible energy workforce already established. And, nuclear facilities are very similar to coal-fired generation, which we own in the northeast part of the state, a 1,600 megawatt coal-fired station. I think, it has the electric transmission infrastructure in place in the region. And like I said, a great workforce here for the future. So very exciting opportunity for West Virginia.
Thank you, Emil. Matteo, back to you. How do you balance, on the one hand, innovation, and on the other, sustainability, reliability, and stability associated with energy supply?
Well, this is an industry that historically has moved very, very slowly, as Emil can attest, but is changing very rapidly, broadly speaking. But that does not mean that you rush headlong into something brand new and you try it out without knowing how it's going to work. And so the succinct answer to the question is very methodically. The slightly longer answer is with our partners, essentially hand in hand and very transparently. So we've signed contracts with utilities who are buying our batteries before we ever have shown them a battery operating at scale on their system. And the reason they've done that, the reason they've taken that step is because we have been very transparent with them, because we have shown them sort of the inner workings of not just the technology but the company, that we have a culture of safety and reliability first, and that we know what we're doing. We speak utility in many ways. I've been in batteries now for about 20 years. Everybody on the team similarly has a lot of experience working in this industry. So this is not our first time through the woods, so to speak. And we've taken that approach from day one, the way that we've built the company, as well as the way that we have worked with our partners to get into the market. So those contracts that we're signing, they're for delivery. When we signed them, they were for delivery years in advance. And so you have to be really methodical about introducing innovations into the space and doing it in a way that really resonates with this industry in particular. You can't just come from Silicon Valley and throw bombs from the outside and expect to sort of disrupt things. That's not really how this industry works. So we've taken a very different approach there. And thankfully we found great partners to do that. And as a result, we're able to go quickly when it comes to scaling up the operation there and where, because we know we have customers who are signed contracts and say, deliver it, we're ready for it as soon as you deliver it.
Thank you, Matteo. Rudy, to you, where can the coal to products concepts actually become disruptive technologies?
So disruptive technology, I would encourage anybody who wants a good definition of that to read a book called The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. There are really three main aspects to a disruptive technology at its onset. And typically, the costs are not quite right. The performance is not quite there. It's only capable of operating or delivering in markets that are usually too small for established companies to be interested in. But once they've created a foothold, if there's potential there, you iterate, you get better, you drive down cost, you improve performance. If you look at the electric vehicle, just 20 years ago, it cost too much. It had a range of about 80 miles. 0 to 60 was like 14 seconds. Someone had to come along and make that happen. I think the presentation just a little bit ago, Park Health, is an example of that, where they're starting with their own employees and doing it right and then building it from there. We kind of see a lot of the technologies that we're looking at with carbon products being in that mold. Building materials is an example. I think Jonathan can probably attest to that, how difficult it is to compete with conventional technologies. But if you can find those small, interesting markets and develop your product, you do stand a chance to improve. In the next century, there are predictions that we're going to need to build 2 billion homes on the planet, which is about as many as we have today. And there's just not enough concrete, steel, and wood to do that job. When you look around the planet, what other materials are at a scale to be able to deliver that shortfall? And coal is really one of the only options we have. And to look at coal as a carbon ore to make carbon products, specifically for homes, for building homes, it does paint the picture that maybe there's a disruptive technology or technologies there to be had.
Thank you. Thank you, Rudy. Jonathan, to you, what technologies that you foresee will help still marginalized or underserved communities in West Virginia and throughout the nation?
Well, if you're able to look at technology from a material science perspective, just like Rudy just explained, what are you going to use? If you've got a finite amount of concrete or a finite amount of wood, steel, a lot of these limited resources, you have to kind of reinvent housing or reinvent the industry and really bring an order of magnitude change where you need to bring a technology that can, one, be implemented much faster, that it can be, number two, very cost effective, meaning that you can bring it down by at least half of the current market structure. And then number three, the ability to mass produce or supply those in need. So if you're able to manufacture a product that allows you to take a set of blueprints and say go, and by that on Monday and by Friday you can be living in that structure, you can now make a change in that industry, and then you just fill in the pieces of manufacturing that go along with that. In order to really make that difference, you have to not only compete on an economic scale, but also on a property scale. So you need something more sustainable, more durable, something more energy efficient that can then have a presence in that marketplace, have that wow factor, and then you introduce it at a cost much lower than the current competition, and you can make a real change.
Thank you. Great answer, Jonathan. Last, Emil, from Dominion's vantage point, what are the most promising avenues for a sustainable, resilient energy future in this country?
So I think, our industry is in a massive transition, and it's going to take, tens and hundreds of billions of dollars to transition from where we are today to the commitments our companies and our peers have made to get to net zero generally by 2050. But to do that, we have to also make sure that we are maintaining our electric reliability and affordability along the way. If we don't do that, that mission will not be accomplished. We'll have too much headwinds, and we won't be able to accomplish that ultimate goal. And so, we're deploying gigawatts of solar, offshore wind. We have the largest offshore wind project that's going to start construction next year off the coast of Virginia, 2,600 megawatts, the largest in North America. We're the second largest utility in the country deploying solar in the states we operate. We're deploying battery energy storage facilities. So those are the technologies we're deploying today. We also have to employ new emerging technologies that are coming to the market. The long duration energy storage technologies that, for example, Form Energy is deploying are extremely important for us to ride through long extended, peak demand periods, periods of time when the wind is not blowing or the sun's not shining, and also advanced nuclear. Like I said, those technologies coming to the market today are really important for us to maintain that reliability and affordability. We're also exploring how can we extend the lives of our existing fossil generation facilities. This is really critical to this transition. I think, we have to find solutions, and I think there are some in West Virginia with all of the underground formations to really implement carbon capture and sequestration. We're exploring that for our Mount Storm facility in Grant County. It's, like I said, our 1,600 megawatt coal-fired facility. Working with a few entities right now to see if there are solutions there. Hydrogen is another fuel that we're looking at to possibly co-fire with coal and natural gas generation. So those are some of the things that we have to do while deploying technologies of today and possibly these advanced technologies of tomorrow. So this is a very capital-intensive business. For example, the nuclear facility I mentioned that we're exploring, on a per-unit basis, that's a $3 to $5 billion investment per facility, right, in the 300 to 400 megawatt range. And we're planning to build potentially up to 18 of those units over the next 25 years. So we also have to find, sustainable, I'll call it balance sheet solutions for our company as we build out this capital-intensive infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil. This concludes our panel presentation. How about a hand for these thoughtful leaders? Madam Chair, lead us to break.
All right, this is going to be 30 seconds, I promise. I'm going to get you out of here so you can get to your 3:10 general sessions. Just a couple things. Court Watch will convene next door in the Chesapeake room. We are going to, door prizes. Those are on. Please check with the information at the registration packet. Also, if you did not get your Fiesta Wear at registration, please pick those up. Attorneys and accountants in the audience, if you want to receive your CLE credits or your CPE credits, please be sure to sign up at the special attendance form at the conference desk. We'll, again, hold our evening reception tonight at 6 o'clock at the Colonial Terrace, and then also cordials this evening at 9. We also will begin again in the morning at 8 a.m. So with that, this general session stands adjourned, and we will see everyone this evening and tomorrow morning. Thank you.